This is my planet. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 576, Are you showing off? How could Xia Guixuan care about this guy? The mysterious thing he had found after so much hardship was of great significance, whether it was used to travel through time and space to sneak attack the enemy or to explore the origin of the world. Even if the Supreme is the highest level, there are obviously differences between the Supreme and the Supreme. At least the opponent's Gaia cannot be the biggest boss, which means that if I assume that I am on par with Gaia at this moment, the opponent has a stronger existence. Judging from the gap between the early stage of taking and the peak of taking, the opponent may be able to beat several of me. If I want to improve, there is no other way to go. This is the most important and last way in front of me. Why can't I touch such an important way to improve? It's good that you didn't say it was hidden by you. In fact, Xia Guixuan thinks that it is so difficult to find that it must be the result of Ahua covering it up. Its current performance shows that it clearly knows what this thing is, but it insists that it doesn't exist, and it is desperately covering up and misleading, wasting everyone's time. It's good that it doesn't cause trouble for you, but you still stop me? He snorted coldly and flicked his sleeves to go in. The crack suddenly broke away from the control of the two goddesses and flew towards Ahua. Xia Guixuan cut across with a palm, cutting off Ahua's trouble, and drilled in. Ahua rushed over and grabbed the corner of his clothes. Don't come in, Xia Guixuan jumped in angrily, standing at the edge and said, I'm coming in. What are you doing? Ahua's eyes were straight for a moment, and suddenly there was no sound. Xia Guixuan jumped out again. I'm coming out again, pissing you off, Ahua. Xia Guixuan jumped in again. I'm going in again. Ahua suddenly trembled slightly, gritting her teeth and watching him go in and out. That energetic look was almost gone. I'm coming out again. Xia Guixuan tilted his head to look at Ahua, feeling a little strange about her appearance, a little hesitant, and tried to stick his head in again. Ahua looked at the GUI, head sticking in, and finally collapsed. If you want to go in, just go in quickly. You're teasing me by being in the middle of nowhere, Xia Guixuan. Is there something wrong with this? What do you mean by in the middle of nowhere? I'm going into a summoned void gate. Why are you so nervous? With a pop, Ahua kicked Xia Guixuan on the butt and kicked him indirectly. The cracked light screen flashed, Xia Guixuan screamed, and disappeared. Ahua put her hands on her hips and panted, her anger still not gone, her body was still shaking, and there was a strange excitement in her eyes. Frigga and Aphrodite looked at Ahua speechlessly, each with a weirder expression than the other. Dear Great Chaos, you are feeling good now, right? They have already guessed what this thing is, but they dare not say it. What are those looks? Ahua jumped up and down in anger. Don't tell anyone about this, or I'll tear your mouths off. No, I dare not. Tell them that Xia Guixuan has gone to explore the way. They should do their own job and do what they should do. The enemy's main combat force may already be on the way to the expedition. They have to face the enemy head-on. Yes, after Ahua finished speaking, she felt that there seemed to be nothing she needed to order, because all the functions of the star field were distributed in an orderly manner. Xia Guixuan had never intended to build this star field into a pattern centered around him as the core, and it would not work without him. The path he took has always been a collective pattern of unity. Even if he really crushed everyone alone, he has been cultivating the strength of others and sharing the responsibilities, hoping that they can take on more. That is his current path. Women and feelings are not burdens, everyone is a help. The fact that he was away for 30 years before, and everything has developed very well, is a strong proof. Now Shang's Haoi Longyao is back to sit in the center of the kingdom of God. The core is more stable, and they know Xia Guixuan's intentions very well and implement them very thoroughly. On the contrary, I am just a troublemaker. Then why am I pretending to give orders here? There is nothing much to say. Xia Guixuan, what are you doing in there? Ahua kicked her legs and entered the cave. Frigga, Aphrodite, what kind of posture is this, entering yourself? This posture is so difficult, most people can't do it. With a swoosh, as Ahua entered, the crack gradually disappeared and never reappeared. Xia Guixuan didn't do anything in there. It was so magical and mysterious that he was in a daze. The visible scene seemed chaotic, but also orderly, dark, and bright. It was like a mixed impression, and it was like the vastness of the universe. It seemed that there were thousands of planets flashing and countless celestial bodies floating and sinking, but they were just images, invisible and intangible. Time and space are intertwined in it, and all nodes of fate can be traced back, and all the dimensions of space can be grasped. There is endless vitality blooming in it, as if a universe can be regenerated at any time. There is a kind of touching feeling of returning home that permeates deep in my heart, as if I have been hesitating for a lifetime and pursuing everything, but when I look back, it is there. What I am pursuing is not nothingness, but how to give birth to existence at the beginning of everything, at the node before existence. Nothingness is something that cannot be defined. If it exists, it is existence. If it does not exist, how can I pursue it? For the egocentric view of what I know is true, everything has a name in order, that is, existence, and before that, it is nothingness. Existence cannot be separated from cognition, which is thorough idealism, but this is the cultivation of immortality. The nameless is the beginning of all things, and the named is the mother of all things. It seems that the process from nothingness to existence is in front of me, and it is the end of Xia Guixuan's path. In all the disordered images, at the end of nothingness and existence, it seems that a lotus has bloomed, and the fragrance is fragrant. Maybe it is the source of the lotus of creation? Everything comes from this? The petals of the lotus platform are slightly closed, attracting people to explore. Xia Guixuan slowly floated away and carefully reached out to touch it. The lotus shrank violently, and the whole space began to shake. Xia Guixuan retracted it as if he had been electrocuted, and frowned slightly. What's wrong with this reaction? Ahua's breath behind him approached rapidly, and in an instant she was beside Xia Guixuan, grabbing his collar, still pretending to be stupid. Touch it again. What? I'm asking seriously, what are you doing? Seeing Ahua panting, Xia Guixuan finally gradually stepped out of the exploration of the mysteries of the universe. And all the lofty consciousness in the asking was broken. What's wrong with you panting, blushing, and your heartbeat? Your eyes are even hazy. Do you, an incomplete person, have these functions? Yes. Huh? Xia Guixuan's expression froze, and he turned his head stiffly to look at the lotus that was slightly expanding and shrinking, and then turned his head to look at Ahua's hazy and angry face. In the end, there was a line that connected in his mind. The gap where everything was born, the starting point from nothing to something. The boundary between acquired and innate, a mixed origin. The whole world fell out from it, and the original creature, the mother of the earth, Gaia, could spread. There was a gap in the origin, which no one else could see. The origin of life was bred from this, and only the goddesses in charge of reproduction could have a vague resonance. If this thing is matched to a person, what is it? Xia Guixuan slowly widened his eyes, and his overly crude cognition overwhelmed his thinking, and he was completely dumbfounded. Really? Really? Where the hell am I? Asking you if you are ready to pretend, it turns out you are not. Chapter 577, Flower is not a flower. Before the lotus, Xia Guixuan and Ahua were sitting cross-legged facing each other, both with their hands in their folds. How could such a thing be counted? The immortality of the valley spirit is called the mysterious female. The gate of the mysterious female is the root of heaven and earth. The Tao gave birth to all things, and all things came from it. It is said that this thing is called the gate of the mysterious female. Xia Guixuan was thinking in a trance. Did he change his name to the so-called return to the mysterious gate in the past, which foreshadowed such a scene in the future? Yes, just now I really felt like returning home, and I also felt like I had found the beginning of the Tao. Too rude. But in fact, this gate of the mysterious female really means this. This metaphor itself is anthropomorphizing the universe. The place where all things are born is this, so the root of the Tao is indeed this. When the universe really becomes a person, isn't it this? Xia Guixuan's hands in his folds turned into covering his face. No matter how he thought about it, it was not wrong. It was indeed so, but it still felt too rude and too hard to accept. He actually came to Ahua to realize the truth. So, do the two Tao mean the same thing in the end? After a long while, Ahua said with a straight face, "Why, do you want to touch me to confirm whether I am pretending or not?" Xia Guixuan woke up slightly, and imagined the scene of touching her to see if she was pretending or not. He wanted to cover his face again. He could only reluctantly say, "Why didn't you say it earlier?" Ahua said expressionlessly, "What should I say?" Xia Guixuan thought about it, and it seemed that he couldn't say it. From the result, her reaction was actually completely consistent from beginning to end. It was because he didn't think about it that way. But this, who the hell can think about it that way? Even now it is still hard to accept. Finally I know why she appeared in front of me with a coquettish look. It turned out that she wanted to seduce this pervert to get on the horse with a gun, but found that there was no way, and then laughed and rolled on the ground, right? What is going on? This. There is no way to say this, so finally he could only say, why don't you take it back? Are you afraid of the universe collapsing? It is very likely, so I can't take it back casually, Ahua said expressionlessly. Why should I be in a hurry to take this thing back? Will it help my combat power? Or who will it be used for? Xia Guixuan, Ahua said contemptuously. Do you really want to use it now? Xia Guixuan didn't even have the energy to complain. I don't use it for anything. Aren't you already using it? Does this usage count as using it? Why not? Is it because this usage doesn't look like there is a membrane? I don't mean that. That thing itself is not a sealing membrane. There is a hole in the middle. Due to its giganticity and evolution, it doesn't look like that thing to you, so you have already passed through it and are inside. I don't want to know what the membrane looks like at all. Xia Guixuan said hopelessly. What's wrong with that expression and tone? Ahua looked up at the sky without answering. Xia Guixuan sighed. If I'm using it, I'm using it to comprehend the meaning of the way of heaven. But now I feel that this thing can no longer comprehend. The show is over. My origin of creation, my lotus of the world, how could it be like this? Ahua sneered. You're still not satisfied, right? Do you want me to apologize to the users? No, I have absolutely no such intention. Xia Guixuan smiled apologetically. Where are the users? This is an accident. An accident? Oh, Ahua said. Accident? Does it mean that it will not be used in the future? Xia Guixuan was stunned, and he didn't know how to answer this question. Ahua's sneer became a half smile, and there was a strange meaning in her eyes. Xia Guixuan, too embarrassing. How will he lie from now on? Ahua looked at him strangely for a long time, finally curled her lips, turned her head and said, just like the natural treasures derived from the Taiyan plane have surpassed me, the principle is similar. You can indeed comprehend the most fundamental way in this place. You don't need to imagine that you are getting into me, to comprehend. I'm not that powerful. Xia Guixuan couldn't help but said, are you weaker after you become human? Ahua thought for a while. You can say that. The human form is not the strongest in the universe. Any dragon is definitely stronger than a human. Since I am a human, I will definitely not be as powerful as the original universe. Then, why did you become a human? Instead of other stronger forms, I don't know. I am just a kind of chaos. Why did I become a human part after the explosion? I can't even be sure whether it was the human parts that evolved into those planes, or those planes that became human parts. Huh? Xia Guixuan's eyes narrowed slightly. I haven't thought about this reverse angle before. It's a bit interesting. But there is one angle that can be confirmed. Back then, I had a movement of heart and came to the star field to comprehend the light and dark space and time. It was not because the light and dark energy here was rich, but because this was near the brain of the brain flower. A place that can communicate with the universe. It's just that my cultivation at that time was not enough, and I couldn't start the plot of Ahua. I was just pulled by a mysterious meaning. So my cause and effect still originated from Ahua. It was Ahua's desire to become a complete person, and the mysterious pulled the cultivator who wanted to find the origin of the universe, so the cause and effect resonated. Thinking of this, Xia Guixuan's expression became softer, and he said softly, no matter what, I will help you find the rest and make you complete. Ahua didn't appreciate it at all. You just want me to put this back, so you can use it. Xia Guixuan laughed dumbly, and didn't refute this. Instead, he suddenly reached out and hugged Ahua. Ahua was caught off guard and didn't expect him to do this. He actually stood there stupidly and let him hug him, forgetting to struggle. Whether you have become the universe, or the universe has become you, or in the eyes of the multidimensional universe, this universe is just one of countless parallel universes. You are not as impressive as everyone imagines, so it doesn't matter, Xia Guixuan whispered. You are just a stinky Gundam who has been with us all the time and makes a lot of noise. There is no need to give it any other meaning, Ahua subconsciously said. The Gundam has been dismantled by you. Xia Guixuan laughed, pointed his finger, and a Gundam appeared beside him. Ahua suddenly ran away. Struggled to break free from his embrace, and kicked him away. You should stop using this tender and sweet Aquaman kung fu on me. Do you think I am as stupid as them? Get out, fuck, you are really chaotic. I thought you were very touched just now. Xia Guixuan was kicked away like a cloud, and fell on the lotus with a bang. Ahua's face suddenly turned red, and she bent down with a twitch. Both sides suffered. Come out, die. Ahua squatted on the ground and gritted her teeth miserably. Come out and change the direction, we will kick past. Xia Guixuan really flashed out and stood in front of her in a different direction. Ahua did not kick him, but just sat there with her legs spread out without any image, because there was nothing to see anyway. Don't show off your skills when you see a woman. I wanted to make you find that you can't find the way when you want to get on the horse, and make you angry to death, but I didn't expect that you found the real way. Wow, why am I so unlucky? Sure enough, I guessed right, she really planned to do so. Xia Guixuan rolled his eyes and said nothing. What a godlike brain circuit. If I can guess this kind of brain circuit, does it prove that I am also about to go into chaos? If you want to feel it, then die and feel it. You said that I am nothing in the multidimensional universe. There is some truth in that. If your cognition breaks through this level, you will be truly invincible. Ahua twisted her toes and said with a wondering look, I also want to retreat and enter into a state of meditation, reorganize some combinations in my body. Don't attack me, Xia Guixuan finally said angrily. Who attacked you? You didn't install it. I have a mouth and breasts, Ahua said confidently. The fox has played with you like that. Don't think I don't know that you can work without that. Bang. Finally, it was Xia Guixuan's turn to kick Ahua, who couldn't bear it anymore. Ahua screamed and fell into her own flower. The flower is not a flower, the fog is not a fog. Xia Guixuan's mind is still confused. This world is amazing. Chapter 578 Conquering the Universe and Conquering Women. After all, no matter how magical the world is, it seems that it will become so after getting used to it. The first day was confused, the second day was calm, and the third day was no different from living a normal life. The only difference was that the other woman around him was replaced by Ahua. Getting along with Ahua was also different from others, because there was not much else to talk about with her. Talking about love was even more awkward and might get you beaten, so most of the time we talked about Taoism. Well, don't get me wrong, it was a real discussion of Taoism. When Ahua had nothing to mess with, she was just a normal practitioner, and everyone naturally talked about more profound topics. He was also the only person with whom Xia Guixuan could discuss Taoism on an equal footing, since he came out of retreat on Kanglong Star. Others were just in preaching Taoism. In the past, I rarely talked about these things with Ahua, firstly because Xia Guixuan himself was proud and would not ask for advice from this stinky pig-brain flower, and secondly because this pig-brain flower's behavior was not a person with whom I could discuss Taoism properly. Today, beside the Lotus platform, the Taoism is here, there is no one else, nothing else to do, and both sides have really begun to calm down and study how to go further. For example, the multidimensional universe. In fact, the concept of multidimensional universe has always existed, and it is not a new theory. There are many parallel planes. The problem lies in self-cognition. From the perspective of I, it has been the same since ancient times, where I am is the center of the world, the planet I am on is the center of the Milky Way, the galaxy I am in is the center of the universe I am in is the main universe. When the vision gradually expands, the cognition is broken step by step, even if you know it is not true, you still think so in your subconscious mind. Qianling Fantasy World also thinks so. From their perspective, Qianling Fantasy World is the main universe, and there is no pressure to swallow other small planes. Even if Dijun merged later, knowing that this place is probably not the main universe, he would still think, why can't I regard it as the main universe? As long as I win, this is the main universe. Everyone's self-consciousness is so strong, and I am the main one, so it is difficult to objectively look at the fact that the universe is multidimensional and actually has no distinction between primary and secondary. Everyone is parallel and consistent, and may even develop better than you. In other words, this universe may be a test field opened up by the strong in other dimensions. It may also be a small plane that already exists and has people living in it. But the strong men from other dimensions came and played a trick here, performing the earth, water, fire and wind, exploding the evolution and spreading the universe to verify some of this person's compositions. Did the myths of many countries come from this? Not sure. If you look at it from this perspective, then Ahua was originally the initial embodiment of the source of creation, similar to the flames in someone's hand before someone throws a fireball. After throwing it out, it exploded, and the raging fire spread all over the world, with flames everywhere. Collect all the fire and turn it into a fireman, that is Ahua, and the other fires are gone, and they are extinguished. This is why Ahua died and the universe was born, and Ahua revived and the universe died. This is also why the plane space is still there after Ahua collected the parts. If you put away the fire, the traces of the previous burning are still there. The fireball is just a metaphor for easy understanding, and the reason is roughly the same. Of course, Ahua is much more powerful than fire. But it is not as high as originally imagined. If we understand it in this way, the universe collapse caused by her resurgence is completely replaceable and not unique. Just like now, each star field has lost its star and would have perished, but the little 9 artificial stars can replace it. It is nothing more than a matter of energy. Expanding it to the birth and death of the entire universe is nothing more than expanding this pattern n times. It is not that mysterious. Energy conservation can't find such a huge amount of energy to replace it. At most, kill the Supreme, isn't it a replacement? At the same time, it does not mean that her strength is much weaker than the person who caused all this. You will kill yourself if you throw a fireball out and hit yourself, not to mention that this kind of original magical power is definitely on the same level as the other party. If it is weaker, it is weak in combat quotient. This guy has no rules in combat. He fights as he pleases and plays as he pleases. He seems messy and unreliable. That's about it. Raise the perspective to a higher dimension and look at everything, no longer taking this universe as the main core, then the will be super-dimensional again, and truly see everything from the past to the present, all in the palm of your hand. Who said my fighting is unreliable? Ahua was struggling. Come again. Xia Guixuan held her right arm backwards, his knee pressed against her lower back, and looked expressionlessly at the origin of the world twisting and struggling under him. The two were fighting each other to verify the Tao, but as they were fighting, this guy wanted to play with Tao Zhe, and then it became like this. If your fighting is reliable, what else is unreliable? I just had a sudden idea and wanted to try the monkey stealing peaches. I heard that this trick is very powerful. Why don't you try the old tree roots? Xia Guixuan said angrily. It stands to reason that chaos contains a strong desire for destruction, not just creation and funny things, right? Ahua blinked her eyes, as if she was lost in thought. Xia Guixuan let her go, and she was still lying there motionless. Xia Guixuan said unhappily, what's wrong again? I was thinking, at the beginning I seemed to have a strong desire for destruction. When did I start to restrain myself and even forget it? Xia Guixuan, it seems so. In the beginning, in the western star field, many remains of civilizations and the remains of foreign fleets were found. They were all destroyed by this devil. Her essence is chaos and destruction. Well, from another perspective, she is not only a collection of beauty, but also a collection of ugliness. But now I can only see beauty and the funny guy who has lost the desire for destruction. What's going on? Has it become half chaos? Or is it that the previous discussion was wrong, and the person who created all this was not someone else, but the dark version of Ahua? He separated his other half and blew it up? The more I think about it, the more likely it is. What goes around comes around, but there is still a little residue, so there is still a little desire for destruction at the beginning, but slowly the good side overwhelms the evil side, and it gradually becomes pure. I don't know if it's what you think, but this is the truth we need to explore in the future. Ahua sat on the ground and said, but I know how that desire for destruction disappeared. Huh? How did it disappear? Ahua looked at him steadily. It's affected by the atmosphere around you. I told you a long time ago. Xia Guixuan blinked. If I were the universe can give you energy and insights, and you are also changing this universe. Heaven and man are mutual. Ahua stood up, suddenly smiled and stretched out her hand to hook his neck, breathing like orchid. Do you want to listen to what Ijun said? I think it's very funny. Is this the reason why you steal peaches every day when you have nothing to do? Xia Guixuan was furious. I don't intend to treat this kind of thing as playing house. If you don't play house, do you still want me? Ahua's smile became dangerous and charming. Don't you think that a being like me will talk about love with you? Xia Guixuan wanted to say, I don't intend to talk about love with you. But looking at her incredibly beautiful face, he couldn't say this sentence after all, and swallowed it back in silence. Ahua seemed to see what he was thinking, and smiled slightly. Men, Xia Guixuan said with a straight face, if I want to get you, I don't have to talk about love, and I don't have to play house. Huh? People can influence the universe and conquer it. Xia Guixuan grabbed her collar. Have I been the king of the sea for too long, and have you forgotten what I should be like? Ahua smiled. It's not that winning the fight is called conquering. What's more, if I fight seriously, are you sure you can beat me? Xia Guixuan didn't say something like you can't be serious at all, but just said lightly, wait, woman. Ahua always felt that his words meant something else. He was not talking about conquering women. He was talking about conquering the world. Because Ahua knew that this guy was even stronger. Chapter 579, Eastern Emperor Realm. During the 2 days of sparring, Ahua clearly felt that Xia Guixuan had become stronger. He may not have learned much here, but he has a very big advantage over others. That is, he has no fear of the universe. After all, the universe wants to steal peaches when there is nothing to do. It may be easier said than done for others to stretch the perspective and look at things from the perspective of the multidimensional universe. But it is easy for him. No one can hide in the true way like him to understand the truth. The deconstruction of the world in his eyes has long been different from that of others. The feeling of looking down after the dimension upgrade, feeling that the universe is just a cave and everything is boring and unremarkable, is much stronger than that of others. So his state of mind is much more detached. At this level, energy itself is not the key, it is still in the heart. From this perspective, there are probably not many people in the universe whose mentality is higher than Xia Guixuan. Ahua sniffed and felt like a prop, every part of it. It would be better to make a Gundam. Have you done pulling? How long have you been pulling my collar and looking at me? Do you like it? Xia Guixuan was silent for a moment, and then said, don't wear a light gauze like a Western portrait. Dress more tightly. Ahua raised her eyebrows, looking very strange. Xia Guixuan's hands glowed, and he slowly transformed her into an Oriental-style ancient dress, and combed her hair. By the way, if there is a battle in the future, I don't want you to be stared at. If you're serious, you can see the cherries, aren't you embarrassed? Ahua's mouth twitched, and she wanted to mock him, but she found that she couldn't say it. This gentle dressing and makeup, with a bit of parental teachings. So weird. By the way, you have been peeking at the cherries, right? Each steals his own peach, and it's even. The magical reverse thinking made Ahua suddenly happy, and she smiled and said, I have clothes. Xia Guixuan asked curiously, how is it? Try it on and see. Ahua blinked, not now, you look good, wear it like this in the future. Xia Guixuan said speechlessly, I changed it casually. It's not a robe. It's not good for fighting. If you have your own artifact robe, it's better to use your own. I don't like it. Ahua's eyes rolled around, and suddenly he took out a Gundam. This is my outer clothes. Then he opened the hatch and climbed in again. With a bang, he became a Gundam again. Then Chun turned into the size of a figurine and hid in his arms. It's better to get used to it like this. Xia Guixuan laughed dumbly, reached out and touched the Gundam, and felt that he was indeed more used to it. Gundam suddenly spoke, hey, I'm always making trouble and never doing anything great. Instead, I'm suspected of being a hindrance. How come I've never seen you get angry or scold anyone, huh? Xia Guixuan said, didn't I scold you? I obviously did. Does that count? Ahua smiled and said, at least force me to say that I must do this or that next time. What you said is at most a complaint. Xia Guixuan was stunned by what she said, but after thinking about it, it seemed to be true. I didn't expect you to really play any role. I was full of expectations for several times, but I was disappointed and desperate in the end. Ahua said, you will let your woman play a role, are you my woman? Xia Guixuan didn't say this, but just said, because they themselves want to play a role and hope to help me. If they just want to be lazy and sleep, then let them sleep. There's nothing wrong with that. I can support them. After a pause, he smiled and said, just think of it as carrying a little Gundam who can complain with you. Isn't it cute? Why bother about it? So warm. Ahua pouted in the Gundam cabin, but her expression was smiling and she was very happy. If you say so, it's not impossible for me to help you more seriously next time. In fact, many things are her own business, not to help Xia Guixuan, but both of them chose to ignore it. It seems that her business is Xia Guixuan's business, so natural. Okay, Xia Guixuan touched the Gundam, do you have anything else to deal with? I want to find a way out. Ahua was stunned. She, who is usually heartless, actually felt a little nostalgic at this time. You have only been here for a few days? It takes at least 10 or 8 years for ordinary people to comprehend the truth, but you are so fast. You haven't even sat down yet. But she also knew Xia Guixuan's anxiety. He was eager to find a crack before, not only because it could be used as a step for promotion, but also because he wanted to reach the opponent's lair directly. He has already comprehended it and has been promoted. Why don't he leave? Are you going to stay here to watch the flowers? According to common sense, the opponent's army is definitely on the way to the Kanglong Star region. If you can appear in the opponent's lair in advance and give them a blow, maybe the outcome will be settled. Ahua could fully understand Xia Guixuan's thoughts, but she always felt that he was so anxious and worried that he lost his usual calmness in planning, which might not be a good thing. But it was estimated that no one could persuade him about this matter. Just go. Anyway, he was strong enough. It would not be so easy for him to get into trouble. If something really happened, wouldn't the great Ahul be here? Ahul thought for a while and asked, "Can you find the place where the space is connected?" "You don't even know who the other party is." Xia Guixuan looked up at the misty image of the starry sky. "I can find her." Ahul pouted and finally said, "Then go. This place, I'll keep it for now, and use it when I come back." Xia Guixuan's expression became strange again. This can be translated as, "This forces me to pretend first?" Forget it. Don't think about such trivial things. Business is more important. If he was confused when he first came in, after these few days, he really can find the point he wants to go to in the vast time and space without Ahua's help. Under normal circumstances, you really can't locate any place at will. You at least have to have a trigger. My sister must have used the magic mirror left on Xia Guixuan to locate the Dragon Realm directly. If I want to locate there, I don't need anything at all, not because of my sister, but because I am too familiar with the Eastern Emperor realm. That is the place where I have truly traveled all my life, engraved with the path of cultivation from mortal to taking, and my familiarity with it is even more familiar than the Kanglong Star realm. I don't know how many of my own things are left in the entire Eastern Emperor realm. In the vast river of time and space, there are endless light spots flashing, as if corresponding to every time, every space, and any place. Xia Guixuan closed his eyes and reached out to touch one of the light spots. The light spot enlarged in front of his eyes and became a portal. Time and space intertwined in it, mysterious and dazzling. Xia Guixuan took a deep breath and strode in. With a whoosh, the crack behind him flashed, and the entire space, including flowers and roads, disappeared without a shadow and was collected in the arms of Gundam. The dark and chaotic scene like the starry sky suddenly brightened. The spiritual energy is rich, and the fairy spirit is hidden. The air is filled with birdsong and flowers, and cranes and white deer are wandering everywhere. There are cliffs thousands of feet high, and waterfalls are rushing down, as if falling from the sky. The waterfalls converge into a pool, and the water waves are shimmering, spreading out in all directions, directly connected to the distant sky, boundless and endless. The song of the mermaids comes from afar, lingering and lingering, and the sound of the piano is unknown. On the high cliff, the blue dragon is hovering above it, and there is a phoenix standing in the middle. The young phoenix sings, and the blue dragon whistles, as if responding to the sound of the piano, accompanied by the mermaid's song, which gradually becomes clear. There are trees on the mountain and branches on the trees, and I love you but you don't know. There is a palace on the top of the cliff, and the pavilions and eaves are vaguely visible. This is not the Dragon Cliff Phoenix Pool. This is the East Emperor Palace, the back mountain. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 580, the accent remains the same. All the restrictions and even the guard arrangements here are no different from before I left. They were all arranged by Xia Guixuan and Xiao Siming. Even the dragon and phoenix are still the original ones. On the surface, Xia Guixuan had only been away for a few hundred years, but for the immortals, it might be just a moment. How many people come out of seclusion, and that's all? In a trance, one can even think. Have you never left? It's just that I was in seclusion nearby, had a long dream, and just walked out of the secret room. Xia Guixuan looked at the top of the mountain with a long look in his eyes, and didn't say anything for a long time. The environment was too familiar, so Xia Guixuan could know the characteristics of all the restrictions and the abilities of the guards with his eyes closed, and he could walk straight up the cliff without alerting anyone. Of course, at this moment, if he wanted to hide, no one would find him. But he was afraid of his hometown. Finally, I understand why my sister changed her face at that time. How can I tell her when we really meet? Wait. It's wrong to meet directly, it can only alert the snake. I came to the old place by myself, I should be looking for the person behind the scenes to kill him, instead of appearing in front of my sister and exposing her long-term lurking. That's a stupid move. I almost missed the big thing. Xia Guixuan took a deep breath, and suddenly his face turned into an ordinary one. Even his temperament and cultivation changed completely, and he became an ordinary Qiannian monk. He also covered up the Donghuang robes on his body. Everything was casually made, without any reference. He believed that no one would recognize him anymore, so he continued to move forward. He remembered that his sister also came in disguise and secretly watched him. Now he was doing the same thing, as if it was another reincarnation. At that time, his sister was recognized by him. Will she recognize him this time? Ahua watched him show in her arms and found it really fun. It was rare to see Xia Guixuan like this. He was really like a wanderer returning home. He could even clearly feel his heart beating in his arms, like a young boy. This cliff also looked familiar. It was the structure of the back mountain of Xia Guixuan's own kingdom of God. The same cliff and the corner of the bamboo building vaguely revealed on the top of the mountain. No matter where he was, he actually lived in the same place, a permanent commemoration. Such a sentimental person could actually deceive himself for so many years. The person on the top of the mountain must be the most important person in his life. Like a teacher, like a mother, like a sister, like a wife. Xia Guixuan could not bear any grudge against the Yandir who hurt him at that time. In fact, how could Xiao Siming hurt him at that time? It is better to say that he half-heartedly took a slap to let her calm down. Even now, from the little layout and hints of his sister should have vaguely known something. Then from the confession to the injury of him, there may be other meanings in it. Maybe it was for his own good, so that he would not be forcibly sent to Guixu. And this mood was mixed with her real Yandir and angry mood at that time, which was too complicated to describe. It's time to reveal all the causes and effects. Xia Guixuan looked up at the guards who had to pass through the cliff, and suddenly dodged and went directly to the back of the bamboo building. Looking through the window lattice, you can just see the profile of Xiao Siming playing the piano. The sound of the zither was melodious, faintly echoing the song of the mermaids in the distance. Her calm profile was as white as jade, and her eyes were fixed on the strings. She seemed a little melancholy, but she was determined. Ahua was the embodiment of all the beauty in the world, but she could not be the literary and gentle temperament of a lady from a noble family. That was completely the opposite. But in the gentleness, the strings were outlined, decisive and resolute, like a sword. At home, the autumn orchids and weeds were lingering under the hall, and outside, she was holding her long sword to protect the young. They were all about marriage and reproduction, but the beauty of China was breathtakingly beautiful, while those goddesses of reproduction outside were the kind that could meet 7 or 8 people of the same kind when they went out to buy a pack of cigarettes. The cultural difference was so great. What night is it today? I am in the middle of the river. What day is it today? I am in the same boat with a prince. The singing came from the sky and rippled in the sea of souls. Xia Guixuan listened and watched silently, his eyes seemed to be fixed, and he couldn't move away. Ahua pouted and suddenly felt a strange emotion. You told me you wanted to conquer the universe, but here you are just like a watchdog, almost spitting out your tongue. Pa. There is no house. Why don't you go in, push it down, tear it apart, and go straight in? You usually look so awesome and decisive, but now you are standing here stupidly for what? Xia Guixuan hit his chest calmly. Don't be so obvious about your intentions, it will be easily exposed. Gundam's eyes rolled around and he didn't move. He was not knocked unconscious, but was stunned by the words. Oh my god, how long are you going to stand here and watch? What are you doing here? Xia Guixuan said in a voice transmission, this is happening right now. Even a fool would know that I have a problem. Only you don't know, Ahua, so I have to wait for an opportunity to meet her openly in the crowd. If she is used to living in seclusion, how long will it take? If the other party is plotting to deal with me, do you think my sister will always be so peaceful? I feel weird seeing this scene. Xia Guixuan ignored it. How could he not hear the endless thoughts in his sister's song? I don't know if she plays this kind of song every day, or if something happened, causing him to be in her heart. This is not narcissism, there is no need to doubt, the affection in my sister's heart is about to overflow between the strings. There is also a hint of worry in the sound of the piano, as if she is looking forward to his arrival, but also a little worried. The vocal art that has been passed down from generation to generation, You can tell the sound by hearing it. In other words, my sister must know the current situation. Someone must have negotiated with her. My sister is delaying. It should be almost certain. The change must be in the near future. Zhang, the sound of the broken string awakened Xia Guixuan's immersion. His first reaction was that he almost wanted to go in and see if his sister's hand was injured. Fortunately, he was not stupid, so he stopped his thoughts. But he saw Xiao Siming looking at the blood on his fingertips and put them into his red lips and pursed it. This was a very charming move by others, but she felt peace. Ah, listing dogs is really awesome. Xia Guixuan secretly beat Goda. Sister's piano is not an ordinary piano. It is futuristic. It is too easy to code a distracted person. But similarly, being able to be broken into pieces means that Xiao Siming's mood at this time is definitely not the calmness on his face, it is the surging dark waves in the sea. Fuxi is the ancestor of the 8 trigrams, and his destiny can be unparalleled in the world. Fuxi kin breaks it is undoubtedly a sign of great danger. Your Majesty, a woman's voice came from the clouds, and a woman's sleeves fluttered down. Your Majesty, what's wrong with you? How did the string break? The current Majesty is Xiao Siming. This woman is the god of clouds, the god of heaven, and one of the guardian gods of the Eastern Emperor realm, Yin Xiaoru. Xiao Siming was stunned for a while, and whispered, Sister, I feel uneasy. In terms of seniority, Yin Xiaoru is of course Xiao Siming's sister. Among the 5 gods in heaven, Tai is the leader, Yin Xiaoru is the second, Da Siming is the third, and Xiao Siming is the fourth. Originally, only the first 3 were taken. In the Battle of Emperor Jun, Tai fell, Yin Xiaoru and Da Siming were seriously injured and dying. Xia Guixuan turned the tide and was elected to succeed the Eastern Emperor. After Xia Guixuan left, Xiao Siming succeeded as the emperor, and the others had no objection. Their obedience and orderliness were extremely strong. At that time, I thought that taking had no demands and only served his own duties. Now it seems that it is engraved in my bones. This is what I am responsible for. If there is no special program to trigger it, it will always be this. The only exception is Xiao Siming, who has awakened his own emotions. Did you break the string because you were uneasy? Yin Xiaoru seemed relieved after hearing Xiao Siming's words. That's better. If the natural warning is the real disaster, then my mistake is nothing. Xiao Siming pursed his lips and sighed after a while. Have you found the ascenders in the past 500 years that I asked everyone to find? No. Your Majesty also knows that since the Luohao rebellion, no mortals have ascended, and there are no new demon cultivators. Then find a young cultivator from the heavens. Feng Chuqingxin can do it. What's the point of your Majesty looking for such a young cultivator? To send him to Kunlun as an envoy. Yin Xiaoru widened his eyes. With all the dangers along the way, can he survive to Kunlun with that little practice? Xiao Siming said, he could do it back then, but now there are no demons, and the road is more than 100 times smoother. Why not? Yin Xiaoru didn't know whether to laugh or cry, and His Majesty stopped shouting, my dear sister, there is only one Xia Guixuan in the world. Chapter 581 My name is Fat Tiger Xiao Siming. There is a little pride on his face. Xia Guixuan is of course the best. Yin Xiaoru found her behavior funny, but even though she had some complaints about the former emperor's escape, she still admired and respected him, and of course she couldn't say anything. He just said, although there are no demons now, but in our world of cultivation, risks are always inevitable and accidents are easy to happen. What's more, for ordinary cultivators, this tens of thousands of miles is always long and tiring. I don't think a young cultivator like Feng Chuqingxin can complete the task safely and on time, Xiao Siming said. I don't plan to let him go by himself, otherwise such a long journey will be a waste of time. I will use my space magic to send him to the vicinity. Kunlun is forbidden and cannot be reached directly. It will be fine if he can climb up Kunlun by himself. If this can't be done, then our Donghuang realm will have a gap in new cultivators. Yin Xiaoru nodded and said, if that's the case, I'll go and screen some reliable people. After a pause, he still couldn't help asking, why must it be limited to this kind of little cultivator? Wouldn't it be simple and convenient to go directly to Qiannigan or even Wuxiang? I can go there myself. Xiao Siming smiled. I just want to see if there are any outstanding newcomers, nothing else. Okay. Although Yin Xiaoru didn't quite understand, he didn't want to argue about such a small matter, so he took the order. Not long after leaving, a sword light came towards his face, roughly. Kinzing level? Yun Xiaoru brushed away the sword energy speechlessly, and saw a fat monk with a tiger head practicing sword. Seeing the sword light mistakenly pass by the big man's face, the little monk's face turned pale with fear, and he stood there at a loss. Yun Xiaoru laughed, thinking that this was not fate. In such a close place to the East Emperor Palace, it is obvious that they are all directly affiliated tribes, without outsiders, and there is no difference in loyalty and trust. Test the character. If this is okay, there is no need to screen. Immortals attach great importance to fate, so Yun Xiaoru pressed the cloud head and smiled. Which tribe are you from? What's your name? The little monk said. I am from the Tiger tribe. My name is Fat Tiger. This is my life card. Fat Tiger, who was far away in the Kanglong Star region, sneezed. The young monk handed over a J tablet and said, I accidentally bumped into His Highness Yun Xiaoru. Please don't blame me. Yun Xiaoru took the life tablet and felt that this guy was neither humble nor arrogant. A little interesting. Should he be a good envoy? There are no monsters in the heaven, and the monster cultivators are not monsters. They have a system. As the saying goes, the dragon soars and the tiger leaps. The tiger clan still has a good status in the East Emperor realm, and there are many tiger clans guarding the temple. Checking the jade tablet, the material, life pattern, soul method and even the tiger clan mark are exactly the same, from which it can be sensed that the communication connection with the tiger clan main hall is completely consistent with this person's original soul, and he is indeed one of us. Looking at the cultivation, the typical tiger clan power combat method cultivation, from the basic method to the breath, there is no problem. Yun Xiaoru is a great taking, and he is very confident in his judgment. There is no way there is a problem. When the emperor who once controlled everything in this world wanted to forge the letter of this world, there would certainly be no flaws. Unless you ask all the tiger tribes to come and identify people, even if you ask the 5 gods of heaven to come and check together, they will not be able to find any problems. Yun Xiaoru had no doubts and smiled. What position do you hold in the tribe? No position for now. The tribe asked me to train. We'll talk about it when I get to Tengayan. The young monk scratched his head honestly. I want to go out for training, but I don't know where is good. Yun Xiaoru smiled and said, if I let you go to Kunlun alone, would you dare to go? The young monk was stunned. Isn't Kunlun in the human world? I heard that it has become a tourist attraction. Why not? Yun Xiaoru said, this Kunlun is not that Kunlun. It is the bridge between heaven and earth, connecting heaven and man. The top of a Kunlun is another world, quite magical. Of course, the journey is difficult and not something that ordinary people can go to. The young monk finally remembered. I heard that when your majesty just started practicing, you went to Kunlun for training, right? Yun Xiaoru nodded. Yes, the young monk said excitedly. Then I will go. I have admired your majesty's style for a long time. Ahu in his arms vomited all over the Gundam. I really want to make trouble for him. But Ahu knows that if she makes trouble at this time, she will be beaten to death by him. Yun Xiaoru laughed and said, Kunlun is dangerous. Some forces there are not on good terms with us. If things go wrong, people will die, the young monk said seriously. Why fear danger on the road of training? Besides, when your highness said this, it must be because you want me to do something. Isn't it natural for me to go through fire and water for your highness? What dangers are you talking about? Yun Xiaoru seemed to have a deep meaning. What if I die? The young monk said. Then I will complete the mission before dying. Yun Xiaoru laughed. Come with me. Ahua rolled her eyes in Gundam. Xia Guixuan knew his former subordinates too well. He knew what they liked to hear. Coming here to lie to people was a complete dimensionality reduction attack. Even his expression was that of an award-winning actor. When he heard that he would die, he pretended to be a little afraid, and then gritted his teeth and fought bravely. It was too real. Yun Xiaoru didn't have any doubts at all and was very satisfied. If Xiao Siming hadn't deliberately gone to the Tiger clan to verify, would he be able to recognize him? Oh no, he had deliberately mentioned Fat Tiger. He had intended for Xiao Siming to recognize him. He didn't intend to play the mask game. This whole drama was just a reason to get close to Xiao Siming in a fair and above-board manner. Just like Xiao Jiai became Xia Guixuan's secretary step by step. He really wanted to repeat the game between the two of them, and even the Tiger clan would do the same. Your Majesty, Yun Xiaoru quickly took Xia Guixuan back and went straight to Xiao Siming's bamboo building. I think this tiger cultivator is okay. Your Majesty, test him yourself. Xiao Siming looked at Xia Guixuan, and her first reaction was a bit strange. But after a closer look, she couldn't see any problem from left to right. She didn't know what was wrong. Maybe it was that look? So strange. She didn't think much about it for a while, but just smiled and said, "Sister, why are you so fast? I'm not trying to deal with you, it's really fate." Yun Xiaoru smiled and briefly recounted the past, and then said, "We met near the East Emperor Palace, so there can't be outsiders. Since we met, why not give it a try?" Xiao Siming nodded slightly. Yun Xiaoru's statement was correct. How could there be outsiders around here? This is not the case when there was a war between the kingdoms of God. There might be some powerful enemies sneaking in. Now is peacetime, there are no foreign enemies, and no one will consider these things at all. If there must be foreign enemies, what is the foreign enemy called? Kanglong Star region? Or Gixu? Xiao Siming laughed dumbly and shook his head, saying, "Okay, I'll test myself." "Thank you for your hard work, sister." Yun Xiaoru smiled and said, "It's fate that makes us meet. How can it be hard? Then I'll go practice first. Your Majesty will tell you if you have anything else to do." Xiao Siming nodded and watched Yun Xiaoru drift away. Her beautiful eyes fell on the young monk in front of her. The young monk felt a little awkward. He lowered his eyes to look at the tip of his shoes and dared not look directly at Xiao Siming. Greetings, Your Majesty." Xiao Siming felt even weirder. It was the same as Xia Guixuan's feeling about Xiao Jiai. Obviously, there was no problem no matter how he looked at her, even if his spiritual sense invaded to scan her, there was no problem, but he always felt weird in his heart, as if something was wrong. An inexplicable sense of familiarity and closeness, no one knew where it came from. Xiao Siming was thinking, Yun Xiaoru's inexplicable trust in this young monk should also have this reason? Some people have this talent, that is, they are friendly and make people feel friendly. This is not only easy to gain the favor and trust of their own people, but also quite suitable as an envoy. But, is he really that gifted? Xiao Siming looked at him and suddenly found that his gaze was different. He seemed to be looking down at the tip of his shoe, but his eyes began to drift upwards, and his gaze was focused on her finger that had just been cut. That look was not surprise, but heartache? Xiao Siming narrowed his eyes and said lightly, "Are you from the Tiger Clan?" Xia Guixuan woke up and smiled apologetically, "Your Majesty, I am indeed from the Tiger Clan." Tiger Clan? Xiao Siming nodded and suddenly asked, "Why don't you kneel when you see me?" Xia Guixuan was stunned. He had abolished the kneeling ceremony that year. Could it be that his sister added this rule back when she came to power? Impossible, this is a test. He said carefully, "Aren't we not allowed to kneel?" Xiao Siming waved his hand with a smile. "Stand closer." Xia Guixuan walked forward carefully. The next second, a scabbard slammed down from behind his head, and Xia Guixuan fell to the ground with his arms and legs spread out. Xiao Siming's heart was pounding. Of course we don't kneel, but any Kingxin cultivator who sees the Emperor of Taking will instinctively feel awe. Are there any like you? Still looking at my fingers? Xia Guixuan, you still want to trick me? Xia Guixuan himself never thought that he didn't even say Fat Tiger's name, and he was exposed after just one encounter. Chapter 582, asking the guest where he came from. Although the truth was revealed, neither side revealed it. Xiao Siming sat calmly and said lightly, "This is a punishment for your disrespect to me. Are you convinced?" Xia Guixuan muttered something while lying on the ground, and no one could hear what he said. Only Ahu heard it clearly. "Kneel slowly on the bed in the future, until you are convinced." Ahu was very contemptuous. "If you have the guts, say it louder." "Tui, and can you stand up first? You have a Gundam in your arms, lying on the ground, won't you knock people?" Xiao Siming glanced at Xia Guixuan who was lying on the ground pretending to be dead, and his mood suddenly became very happy. He smiled and said, "What is your name, little monk?" Xia Guixuan stopped saying Fat Tiger and said in a muffled voice, "Jijai." Little Tiger is uneducated, this word is pronounced as Z in the surname, same. The little maids around were shocked. Although everyone didn't understand the code of wedding clothes, this little tiger was very brave. He replied with such an attitude. Wasn't he afraid of being dragged out and chopped? Xiao Siming's eyes flickered, and then he quickly said with a stern face, "Get up, how can you lie there?" Xia Guixuan got up obediently, and Xiao Siming pointed to the chair in front of him and said, "Sit down." Xia Guixuan glanced at the maids around him and smiled, "Thank you, Your Majesty, for giving me a seat." Xiao Siming suppressed his smile and looked him up and down. Xia Guixuan covered his collar with his hands, his eyes showing fear. After a simple pantomime, Xiao Siming spat and blushed as she thought, if he was so cute back then, it would be great. But now. She coughed twice and said lightly, I'll tell you the rules of being a personal secretary. First, you have to, Xia Guixuan hurriedly said, didn't His Highness Yun Hongjin say that His Majesty was looking for someone to go on a mission? Oh, cough. Xiao Siming's cheeks were slightly red, and she hurriedly covered up and said, if you work hard, I will grant you the position of personal secretary when you come back. Why don't you thank me? Xia Guixuan had no choice but to say, thank you for your grace, Your Majesty. This was said. When he met Tai that year, he didn't say such flattering words. Cough of course, this time it was not Xia Guixuan but a little monk from the tiger tribe. Of course, he had to act well. Of course, it would be best to drive away the little maids so that he wouldn't have to act so hard. It's a pity that Xiao Siming didn't seem to understand his expectations, or simply said that he particularly enjoyed Xia Guixuan's humble appearance, and wished he could call more people to stand on the side and watch. She slowly got up and left the piano, sat on the soft chair by the window, and said lazily, Little tiger, can you give me a massage? Xia Guixuan was dumbfounded, and the maids beside him were also dumbfounded. Some of them couldn't help but chuckled, Your Majesty. Oh, Xiao Siming sighed and stretched, Little tiger, come and pour tea for me. A maid said carefully, Your Majesty, let us do it, go away. Xiao Siming glared. The maid was dumbfounded, staring at Xia Guixuan desperately, but she didn't find any extraordinary strengths of this chubby little tiger. Could it be that the strengths are hidden underneath and ordinary people can see it? Xia Guixuan walked forward, and the little maid stared at him. Thinking that this guy really dared to take his hand to massage, and he would chop off the dog's paw even if he was scolded by His Majesty. The little maids are loyal to the late emperor. Bah, this word is wrong, the former majesty. Fortunately, Xia Guixuan didn't dare. Actually, it's not that he didn't dare, but he didn't want to be seen by others as Xiao Siming flirting with a strange man, which would affect Xiao Siming's reputation and make him jealous. That's right, he was jealous of himself. He stepped forward silently, boiled water and poured tea. The little maids were stunned and returned to their original positions. It seemed that this little tiger was quite sensible, and how to say it. His movements were very elegant and he looked very generous, which was a sharp contrast to the embarrassing look of being photographed lying on the ground just now. The sunlight poured in through the window lattice, and Xiao Siming's profile had some hazy beauty. Xia Guixuan stood beside him, like a beautiful home painting. The little maid's eyes were a little hazy, as if the former majesty had returned and was repeating the scene they had seen many times in the past. His sister came to visit, and he made tea for her. The hot steam rose up, and Xiao Siming looked into his eyes through the mist. Although his face had changed, his eyes were hard to change. He was still the same, appearing by his side when he needed him most, as if he had never left. She took a deep breath and said calmly, the top of Kunlun Mountain, far away from the world, is another world. There are some ancient gods living in seclusion in this world. You are on my behalf and convey a piece of advice, Xia Guixuan said, Your Majesty, please give orders. If Xia Guixuan comes to them, tell them not to help. Xia Guixuan was stunned. Xiao Siming tilted his head slightly and looked out the window. They have long transcended this world, watching the clouds rise and fall. All the changes in heaven and earth have nothing to do with them. But there is only one person who is different. They are connected by blood, and their blood is thicker than water. If he comes, he may waver. If he really breaks his oath, there will be heavenly punishment. It would be best if he can ambush and kill Xia Guixuan in Kunlun like us, and put an end to it once and for all. Xia Guixuan, Xiao Siming added, maybe they have also received such a message. I am worried, so I sent someone to pass it on again, that's all. A maid couldn't help but said, Your Majesty, shut up, Xiao Siming said sternly, you are getting more and more unruly. Do you have the right to speak? The maids lowered their heads and said sadly, Your Majesty, are you really going to? Xiao Siming said coldly, Xia Guixuan rebelled against the Eastern Emperor realm and should be executed. This is a consensus. If he appeared here, there would be a dragnet waiting for him. It would be useless for you to think about him, the maids cried, we just don't understand. It's fine if your majesty hates him, but why are others willing to do this? Xiao Siming said lightly, because they are not as cultivated as you are, and they are emotional. Xia Guixuan's heart moved slightly. At this time, the Eastern Emperor realm is no longer the same as before. At that time, The subordinates may have been modified by the instructions in their subconscious, and their feelings of respect for him may still be the same. But if he appears, they will still kill him in the name of rebellion. Xiao Siming obviously received this instruction, but she has self-awareness and already knows everything, resisting the modification. On the surface, her performance is seen by outsiders as a black and sickly girl who hates Xia Guixuan's ruthlessness and wants to kill him as soon as possible from that year to now. Then the instructions of the person behind the scenes are also directed in this direction, and she behaves according to this setting without revealing any flaws. The whole world thinks that she and Xia Guixuan have been enemies for a long time. Xia Guixuan was almost beaten to death back then, which is true. So at this time, the Donghuang realm was actually under the leadership of Xiao Siming, preparing to ambush Xia Guixuan in a dangerous place where he would die. Xia Guixuan suddenly felt like laughing. It was very interesting. Fortunately, he changed his appearance, and his sister must be ecstatic, and took the opportunity to reveal all the inside information. Before, she wanted to find a cultivator with Feng Chu Kingsun to deliver the letter, because this kind of low-level cultivator would not be modified, and was still a normal person. She originally wanted to use such a cultivator to convey some secret information to Dao, or the three emperors. Now it is no longer needed, and the cultivator who came to reply is Xia Guixuan himself. It came at the right time. Xia Guixuan bowed and said, "I will live up to your Majesty's trust. Is there anything else that your Majesty needs me to convey?" Xiao Siming's gaze fell back on him and smiled slightly. The hermits in Kunlun are all saints with great merit. They have seen the past and present and have insight into many mysteries. If you have any questions about the way of cultivation, you can ask them and they will teach you. Cherish this opportunity and seize your fortune, little tiger. Chapter 583 There is no God on the world. Xia Guixuan didn't stay for long. He entered the space channel opened by Xiao Siming and went straight to the foot of Kunlun Mountain. In fact, Xia Guixuan didn't want to leave so soon. He wanted to talk to his sister again. But he knew better than anyone that this was not the time for love. The situation was more serious than he imagined, so much so that his sister had to use this kind of infernal hint to communicate. The Eastern Emperor realm was a trap that set up a net to kill him, and the top of Kunlun was also limited by the way of heaven. I don't know what kind of cause and effect it contains. My sister's meaning was very clear. There were some things she couldn't say, or she didn't understand them very well, so she asked me to ask my grandfather. People on Kunlun could also be restricted. This was something Xia Guixuan had never thought of before. I always thought that they were above everything, didn't look at these mundane things, and completely avoided seclusion. Now it seems that this kind of seclusion also has an inside story. In this kind of thing, there is a big difference between active and forced. The former is called seclusion, and the latter is called imprisonment. Xia Guixuan looked up at the towering Kunlun, and the mountains were shrouded in clouds and mist, and the sun was invisible. In the past, I felt that there was a fairy spirit, but now I suddenly felt a little gloomy. If you look at it this way, can you say that this is also Guixu? Kunlun Su, Kunlun Su. Man-made gods are archived, and self-made gods hide in Kunlun. So there is no god in the world? Xia Guixuan took a deep breath, performed well, and slowly climbed to the top of Kunlun. Between the snowy peaks, a cold river flows quietly. An old man, wearing a straw raincoat and a bamboo hat, sits quietly by the river fishing. Snow falls on his body, and the old man does not move, like a sculpture. From a distance, the sky and man are one, and there is a vast expanse. Xia Guixuan stood behind him and watched him fishing, without disturbing him for a long time. The fishing rod sank slightly, and the sculpture-like old man suddenly moved. He swung the fishing rod and threw out a big tiger carp. The old man happily put the fish into the basket and laughed. This messenger is lucky, he got a big carp. Xia Guixuan put his hands in his sleeves and looked at him speechlessly for a long time. Are you fishing now, brother? This is just an ordinary carp, not even a fairy thing. What are you so happy about? But he also knew that the old man was happy because your presence was a gift. Don't use internet words with me, I don't go online, there is no internet here. The old man smiled and stood up with a basket. Let's go back and make you 18 dishes for one fish, Xia Guixuan said. Don't bother, let me do it. The old man turned his head and looked at him for a while, and smiled. The messenger's chubby face is quite cute, reminding me of my grandson when he was a child. That guy thought he was very handsome when he grew up, but in fact, I want to vomit when I see him, he is so greasy. Xia Guixuan, Ahua was very happy. Not far from the river was a wooden house, and the yard was full of snow. The old man pushed open the wooden door with a creak and hummed a tune and went into the house. If you don't say this is Deu, this is no different from an ordinary mortal old man. Only the artistic conception of the wooden house that seems to exist with a heaven and earth proves that this is an immortal god. When he followed into the house and the wooden door closed, Xia Guixuan felt that he had entered an independent universe, with no sky above and no ground below, and his own separate dimension. It means that he can speak, and he is not afraid of the law being spread to the 6 ears. In fact, you are much better than me now. Deu skillfully shaved the fish with a knife, and said casually, as long as you deliberately hide, others can't count you at all, and can't observe you. So why don't you say it directly, and turn into a tiger-headed messenger to see me just to be cute? You said you don't go online. Where did you learn the word cute? Not going online doesn't mean there are no outsiders. Sometimes Xiao Siming will come to accompany the old man, just like serving the parents-in-law. She cooks fish better than me and your grandmother, Xia Guixuan. There is actually a lot of information in this sentence. Not only is it a compliment to the granddaughter-in-law, but it also means that there are only outsiders, not yourself. He sighed. Where's grandma? She went to visit a friend. Kunlun is very big. You don't think there's only this corner? No, I've at least been to the Queen Mother of the West. The fairies there are very beautiful. So did grandma go there? Almost. Deu smiled and said, I asked her to go. There are some things women should not get involved in. Xia Guixuan couldn't help but said, you have also learned to love your wife. Deu glared and said, you have learned it, why can't I? Xia Guixuan scratched his head. Deu's fishy hands patted Xia Guixuan's shoulders casually. You can't be blamed for your previous behavior. It's inherited from your ancestors, which means you are his biological son. Oh, by the way, he even likes foxes. Xia Guixuan was too tired to complain, and could only say, I will come to accompany you more often when I have time in the future. No thanks. Deu smiled. This is not a good place, Xia Guixuan said, so how about smashing it to pieces? Not necessarily. This is the place we chose ourselves. I used to think so, but now it doesn't seem so. It was indeed my own choice. Deu put the fish into the pot quickly, covered the pot and thought absent-mindedly for a while, suddenly smiled. What do you think will happen if the emperor of the world abdicates and becomes the emperor, and keeps pointing fingers outside all day long? Xia Guixuan said. 9 out of 10 will be killed or locked up by their sons. The remaining one has much higher prestige and means than his son, and the son is just a puppet waiting for his father to die before he can breathe a sigh of relief. That's it, Deu said. We have all retired and died, so why do we still interfere in the mundane world? Believe it or not, if I were still alive and whining, the first person who would want to kill me would be your father, and if your father were still alive and whining, the first person who would want to kill him would be you. Oh, of course, your father can't beat me, and you probably can't beat your father either. It's really one generation worse than the next. Ahua rolled over with joy. She was the only person in the world who could expose Xia Guixuan's shortcomings like she was training a grandson, and Xia Guixuan had to listen obediently. It was so comfortable. Because that was really training a grandson. Xia Guixuan had no choice but to say, whether we can succeed or not is another matter. I don't think so now, because you are not an emperor now. In other words, although you govern the star field, you have no desire to rule. You are no longer an emperor. Whoever wants to manage can manage it, just don't mess with your people, Xia Guixuan admitted. Yes. If it were me during the Immortal Emperor period, it would be hard to say, so just retire, live in seclusion and don't go out again. This is the consensus, but it doesn't mean that you can't go out and play, especially in the future. Who will recognize who you are when you go out? Just based on that abstract portrait that even your grandchildren can't recognize, if you want to live in the future, you must first be immortal. This is the premise. We are not practitioners, so how can we live in the future? Of course there must be a price, not a practitioner, of course. Fuxi, Yang Huang, and I, are not practitioners. Our ascension is due to merit and virtue. It is equivalent to an agreement with the way of heaven. We are immortal, but we don't care about worldly affairs. From another perspective, we can be regarded as dead. Deu smiled casually. In the eyes of the world, we are already dead, just like you. Seeing Xia Guixuan's hesitation, Deu glared and said, you don't mean to say that Huang Di ascended to heaven with a woman? Don't believe the rumors in the market, Xia Guixuan said helplessly. That's not what I want to ask. So this is also Gixu, and mortals who become saints return here, almost. Dayu said leisurely, the world doesn't need immortals and gods. Nature has its own wind, rain, thunder and lightning, so why do we need Fenbo, Yushi, Li Guang and Dianu? It's just that it was either because of the emperor's appointment or because of the wishes of all living beings, and they were moved by heaven and condensed into divinity. There is no divinity in the world, it is the wishes of mortals that condensed into divinity. There were people first and then gods. Xia Guixuan's heart moved slightly. I have said similar words before, but that was just a guess and tentative thinking, not a conclusion. And my grandfather's words have completely concluded the matter, indicating that my previous thinking has touched the essence and found the right way to glimpse the supreme. So the question is, since there were people first and then gods, and there is a so-called agreement with the way of heaven, who is the way of heaven? Chapter 584. The so-called heavenly Dao is the will of the world, or simply the law of nature. Some worlds can be personified, while others are just the will of the universe. For Kanglong Star, heaven's way is Xia Guixuan. For Donghuang Realm, heaven's way is Donghuang Taiyi, and Taiyi's meaning is this. For Donggai Realm, heaven's way is Dijin. For the currently known universe, heaven's way is closer to Ahua, but I always feel that Ahua is still a little bit short of it, not to this extent, mainly because her performance is too funny. I can't feel that level, maybe it's actually there. Oh, I can't recognize it. According to Chinese tradition, there are few sayings. For example, Hongjin. Hong means big, Jun means unit of weight. A straightforward translation is the heaviest thing. Thousands of kilos are not enough to describe it. Then it's Hongjin. What is the heaviest thing in the world? One is the heaven, and the other is the state, so Hongjin does mean heaven's way, and at the same time it also means the emperor, and it can also be used to express the grace of the emperor. But Hongjin is just a description that expresses a lot of weight. It is not a person's name, and has never been regarded as a god, and has not been personified. If Hongjin can be personified, then very heavy can also be personified. Don't you feel that your status has been lost instantly, just like chaos has become Ahua? The earliest book that introduced Hongjin as a person was the Investiture of the Gods in the Ming Dynasty. This is an ancient book for modern people, but for Dao and Xia Guixuan, the grandfather and grandson, it was a thing from a very long time ago. Xia Guixuan felt that although Su's Honglin had a strong imagination, he was still too serious. For example, according to Hongjin's original intention, such a heavy person must be a fat man, the fattest person in the world. That would be cute, right? In short, even if this Xian Dao who was called Hongjin by others, it would definitely not be in Dao's dictionary. But according to Dao's dictionary, this thing should be called Taiyi. The only person who can be higher than Taiyi is the one who makes Ahua like this, and that is the ultimate goal everyone is pursuing. In addition to Hongjin, are there any other explanations? Yes. For example, before the beginning of chaos, there was the essence of heaven and earth, named Yuanqi Shian Wang, who roamed in it. Later, the two instruments separated, and Yuanqi Shian Wang lived above the center of the sky, breathing the air from above and drinking the springs from below. This is Yuanqi Shianzhen, and it is also compatible with Pangu's theory. For example, Laojian's body is natural. He was born before the great nothingness, and he started from no cause. He experienced heaven and earth, and his beginning and end cannot be measured. He is infinite and infinite. He rotates with a great Dao, establishes roots for heaven and earth, spreads ki to all directions, and embraces the purest morality. He is vast and unrestrained, and cannot be named. This is Taishang Laojin. Another example, Yuchen Daojin is the incarnation of the great Dao. It is said that his existence cannot be followed, and his non-existence no longer exists in a trance. Therefore, he exists without existence and does not exist without non-existence. There is no image when you look at it, and no sound when you listen to it. The great Dao exists between the wonderful existence and the wonderful non-existence. Daojin examines the origin of the Dao, penetrates the origin of the Dao, and is the key of the Dao. This is Lingbao Shianzhen, yes. Tuangshinjai Azhu. It's all heavenly. The highest level of our cultivation is taking, which is the title of Taishang Laojin. What we cultivate is Laojin's method, and the great way we achieve is Laojin's way. The descendants of the Kanglong star god cultivate Xia Guixuan's way, and Xia Guixuan is the way of heaven. Then everyone cultivates Taking's way. Who is the way of heaven? This place is Kunlun, Kunlun Yuxu. Who is the master? The case is about to be solved. The origin of the three caves is originally the same as the Tao. The Tao is only one, but it is divided into three, all to induce the common people to cultivate immortals, and to prove the Tao from the ordinary, all gradually differentiated, so there are three names. In fact, the three pure ones are all Tao, and the Tao is divided into three. The so-called one key becomes three pure ones, which just becomes three images. Then this initial one key is it. Dayu may not recognize the three pure ones, but he must recognize this one key. And if this one key must be described in one word, it is Teichu. In the beginning, there was nothing, and nothing was nameless. Where one arose, there was one but had no form. The beginning is when key first appeared. In the beginning, black and yellow mixed together, chaos and chaos, and the signs of me had no form. The starting point of everything is also the end point of the path that Xia Guixuan pursued. Nothing, nameless, and unformed. Before one, before Tei. The so-called heavenly way is the transformation of Teichu, Xia Guixuan suddenly asked. Dayu was stunned, and for the first time, his eyes showed shock. You guessed it, but you didn't feel it when you said its name directly, Xia Guixuan said lightly. You said before that I am stronger than you now, and actually much stronger. To be disrespectful, you are quite weak in my eyes now. Sure enough, he rebelliously talked back after being scolded by his grandson. Ha! Dayu did not take it as an offense, but laughed. It's better to be better than me. If each generation is worse than the previous one, I will be angry to death. He paused and pointed out the window. Today's mortals must also be better than you and me in the past. I still agree with Teichu's idea. Agree? Xia Guixuan was a little stunned. When you came to visit, I told you that the world belongs to all people in the world, not Xiaoxi. Dayu smiled and said, over the years, we are not blind to the changes in the world, and our ideas have improved. Today's mortals really don't need immortals and gods, let alone emperors. I heard that you are moving in this direction in the Kanglong Star region. Yes, there is still room for improvement, Xia Guixuan suddenly thought. Isn't this what Xiaoju meant? Grandpa watched the mortal world quietly for thousands of years, and finally came to the same conclusion as Xiaoju? You are an old slave owner? How could you? But Grandpa does have this potential. When he was controlling the flood, he traveled all over the mountains and rivers of the 9 provinces with his mortal body and the transportation conditions of the ancient times. He passed by his home 3 times without entering. He did it for the responsibility and for the people. The fact that he could become a saint is proof of this. If he had other purposes, he would not be able to achieve any merit. As for the concentration of power in the future, it was really because his reputation was too high. When he was there, the 9 provinces obeyed him and no one dared to fart. When his father came to power, there were people who rebelled immediately. When it came to himself, well, even a fool like himself was willing to try out Xiaoju's ideas. What couldn't a man like Grandpa do? Kunlun Void is the place where those of us who are mortals becoming saints return to their homeland. What is the place of return? To put it bluntly, it is the place of the end. For us, it is just another underworld, Dayu said calmly. We are dead people. The world does not need any traces of us. We just need to be ghosts. The atmosphere here is better than that in the underworld. We can enjoy our old age and live a leisurely life. Why should we think about anything else? Xia Guixuan smiled bitterly. You are quite open-minded. What you said. To be honest, I never thought that ascending to heaven is the same as entering the underworld. I let my own heroic spirits go out to play occasionally. How can this be possible? We actually do that occasionally, too. We just visit the mountains and rivers, observe the world quietly, and do not participate in any changes. I think it is better than reincarnation, right? I don't want my spiritual light to disappear. I still have to accompany your grandmother. That's indeed better. It's better than my heroic spirit, because there is nothing to do, right? Just play? My heroic spirit has to work. Dayu laughed. Ha ha ha, that's right. How about the treatment of retired cotters? Xia Guixuan sighed. Just say something bad about the other party. If it goes on like this, I'm almost not going to fight anymore. Being said to be planning the twilight of the gods, the withering of immortals and gods, and playing everyone for fools, as if it's all for the good of mortals. I just don't believe it. Not a single but. P.S. Transition chapter. Let me tell you slowly, although I don't ask for votes now, it's too embarrassing to fall out of the top 100. Give me some votes to cover my ass. Chapter 585. Teshidea prepared a fish soup, filled the bowl and handed it to Xia Guixuan. Don't be so anxious, it's not good for the Tao. Xia Guixuan said, now I suspect that you and your sister are being bullied. If I'm not anxious, I'd be a big filial son, okay? Dao laughed and said, so I said this first, meaning that I'm not being bullied. You should be at ease first and talk about other things slowly. Xia Guixuan took the fish soup and was still a little hesitant. Do you know the situation of Xiao Siming? If you weren't there, she would never have any problems, so are you at ease? Sit down. Dayu took out a lot of fish from the same pot of fish soup like a magic trick, including sweet and sour, steamed, pepper and salt, braised, etc., and placed them on the table, with a fragrant aroma. Xia Guixuan was talked about by him, and whose anxious mood was indeed calmed down a lot. Looking at his grandfather's expectant eyes, Xia Guixuan finally sat down and ate fish with him. He was thinking in a trance that it seemed that many people knew how to deal with him in this way, just like the warmth of a family. But here, it was actually the grandfather who expected his grandson to accompany him, instead of rushing to leave for something. He said he was here voluntarily, and nothing else mattered. But in fact, he had a grandson running around outside, and he was so famous that he was known all over the world, but he never came back to see him properly. How could he not have expectations in his heart? Xia Guixuan reflected on himself and realized that he was indeed wrong. He came here twice in total. The first time he came to seek the truth, and the second time he came to get the tripod, but it was gone. Both times he left after a few words. At that time, I thought it was normal. Cultivation is not about so many things. Did the country not care about my grandfather? Looking back now, I still believe that I should be a person first, not only in love between men and women, but also in family love. This is why the Little Fox's family love offensive was able to successfully conquer Xia Guixuan. There were people first, and then there were gods. What my grandfather said was also applicable here. Ahua, come out and eat something too. Grandpa is not an outsider, so there is no need to be shy. Xia Guixuan took out a Gundam. The cabin of the Gundam opened, and a little beauty jumped out, and soon she turned into a big beauty in the wind. Dayu looked at Ahua with a look of surprise, as if he wanted to say something but hesitated, but he still held it back, shook his head and laughed. What an anomaly. After a pause, he laughed again. Very good, very good. Takang also knows to bring his wife to accompany the old man. He has become more sensible. Ahua, Xia Guixuan hurriedly said. Misunderstanding, misunderstanding. This is not my wife. Dayu waved his hand. Who cares if you are? You have seen more in the mortal world than me. These days, when you bring female classmates home to meet their parents, they say they are just classmates, and the parents are but they don't believe you in their hearts. I just reluctantly believe it. Xia Guixuan. Ahua wanted to flip the table, but Xia Guixuan's hand stretched out from under the table, quietly pinched her hand, and signaled to give some face. Otherwise, this idiot could really flip the table. Ahua was stunned for a moment, but she didn't argue with Xia Guixuan. She sat there angrily and picked up the chopsticks to eat fish. Her left hand was still pinched by him under the table. But she didn't pull it back. Dayu smiled and poured a glass of wine for both of them. People today seek the truth, and they are more and more boundless. They think whatever they want. Taking said that I am not very good now, but I still think that the essence of seeking the truth is nothing more than the unity of heaven and man. Coming and going is just to play more on these 4 words. Xia Guixuan looked strange. This is not wrong, but considering the situation, are you talking about the unity of me and Ahua? Ahua said with a sour face. Cooperation is also unity. Dayu did not argue with her, but smiled slightly and picked up a chopstick of braised fish for her. Try it. Ahua tasted a chopstick and blinked her eyes. It's delicious. Dayu laughed, and his expression was really satisfied with his granddaughter-in-law. It seems that she listens to Takang's words. The husband's authority is well restored. This granddaughter-in-law has a very high taste. Although the quarrel within Kunlun is also caused by this. Logically speaking, if someone else was involved with Ahua, Dayu might have thought it was better to stop them, but since it was Xia Guixuan, he would only think, my grandson is really awesome. This is how people are. People have preferences for closeness and distance. That's why Xiao Siming said that Xia Guixuan's entry into Kunlun would be different, because Xia Guixuan's bloodline is not just related to Dayu. Why did Shun have to continue to use you after killing Gun? Gun himself was the great-great-grandson of the Yellow Emperor, and after Zhuangsu, he represented an important Zhuanitun clan, Gaoyang clan, which Shun could not leave out at all. the so-called descendant of Emperor Guiyang, the legitimate Zhuanyuan bloodline. So Chu Yuan's 9 songs imitated Xia's 9 songs, and the entire sacrificial system followed Xia. While Chu Yuan's Chu state was separated by a long time, or the branches were separated, Xia Guixuan's lineage was very close, and he had been an emperor, with an extremely strong family head inheritance and sense of identity, which was much more meaningful. In Kunlun, where the Yanhuang lineage is the main body, Deyu is not the only one who supports him, nor is he the only one who shouts my great-grandson is awesome. So Deyu is so leisurely, without the urgent anxiety imagined. Of course, this has to be done by Xia Guixuan himself, no one else can have this effect. The unexpectedly alive and stunted Emperor Si Taikang is itself a critical unexpected point, a real unexpected among unexpected people, which has made the world a mess. Deyu took a sip of wine and said leisurely, let's talk while eating. In fact, to put it bluntly, some things are just family matters. Xia Guixuan also went down calmly, took a sip with Deyu, and said with a smile, how family matters are they? Deyu said calmly, first of all, you have to believe that we are the earliest source of Chinese civilization. The power of merit and the wishes of all living beings have supported the huge Zhuanyuan descendants in the ruins of Kunlun. As long as it is a Chinese matter, it is a family matter. In other words, our birth has nothing to do with gods or simply the beginning of the world. Yes. Even if the universe is related to it, Deyu glanced at Ahua and continued, anyway, the earth was not created by it, nor were living beings, nor civilization. But when it comes to the cultivation of immortals and gods, it is. Can I understand that the small plane was expanded into the big universe by it? Anyway, we are indigenous people and have nothing to do with it, almost. Deyu smiled. The Big Bang did exist and was observed, so there are various legends, such as Pangu creating the world, or chaos and so on. To this day, the exploration of mortals also points to this point. In fact, they are all talking about the same thing. Why can the legend correspond to the research of modern people? Because in this matter, someone observed it and left behind a legend. That is the earliest native civilization, which is the origin of you and me. Xia Guixuan's mood became very good, and he smiled. From this point of view, our style is not low, there is no need to belittle ourselves, Deyu said, but it is the creator of the Big Bang, the evolver of the universe, and the disseminator of all cultivation methods. It does belong to the way of heaven and is Teichu. There is no need to deny this. Xia Guixuan nodded. I know, Ahua said. Then why am I not Teichu? You? Deyu hesitated for a moment. When nothing turns into something and explodes into the universe, it is called Teishi. In other words, before you exploded, you might also be Teichu, and after the explosion, you were called Teishi. Even after recovery, because you already have a complete human form, how can there be chaos? It is nothing more than emptying the energy of the universe, shrinking and collapsing rapidly again, and returning to the origin. Ahua, it seems to be right. In this way, Ahua can also be called Teishi. The word she has a female radical, so that's it. Xia Guixuan couldn't help but say, I'm not looking down on Grandpa, how could you know so much? You haven't practiced to this level, because of your matter, Teichua has issued many orders, and Kunlun has quarreled many times. We all know what we should and shouldn't know. The price of knowing is that we need to make a choice. It just so happens that you came, it's the right time. What choice? Kill me, or granddaughter-in-law, Deyu said leisurely. You can enter Gixu, but granddaughter-in-law must be killed. That's what Teichua meant in the end. On the surface, it seems that he is okay with Xia Guixuan. However, the same old saying still applies. Voluntary seclusion is called seclusion, and forced seclusion is called imprisonment. And it is an eternal prison. This paragraph is difficult to write, so take your time. Chapter 586 The Origin of God. Xia Guixuan sneered, let me be blunt. Since Grandpa said that our origin has nothing to do with it, then who is it? It determines my future and Ahua's life and death. Does it have keys? How many keys? Deyu said, what if the resurrection of my granddaughter-in-law really leads to the decline of the universe? Even if there are adverse consequences, Ahua and I will find a way to deal with it ourselves. What qualifications do others have to judge? Do you really think it is the messenger of justice and I am the villain boss? Xia Guixuan sneered. Besides, did you ask Ahua for consent before you blew it up? We didn't seek revenge on it because we didn't find it. Now it's targeting us? So self-righteous. Ahua smiled, held his hand, and said nothing. The movement of those eyes always made Dave feel that you should stop being so stubborn and say that you are not your granddaughter-in-law. Don't ask me whether I believe it or not, you should ask yourself whether you believe it or not. He did not complain about a hui, but said leisurely, the strong prey on the weak, that's all. You can say these things because you are qualified to go against it, otherwise it will be decided by others. Xia Guixuan nodded, yes, so there is no such thing as being self-righteous, it's just a matter of who can suppress whom. Dayu said, we were worried about you at first, but when the battle of Qianling Fantasy Realm came, we suddenly felt that we were wrong. You are not afraid, on the contrary, you are afraid that something will happen to me or Xiao Siming. It's not that awesome. Xia Guixuan sighed, no matter what you do, you still need to know everything. I don't know where the other party came from, what it thinks, what level of cultivation it has, and how many strong people agree with its ideas. I am naturally uneasy. If I were not supreme, I might not dare to come here. I might be sensed as soon as I show up, and everything would be over. This is what Xiao Siming said back then, returning home must be in glory. Only when you are on the same level as the other party, you are qualified to play chess. Xia Guixuan has long wanted to explore the mystery of his hometown, and coming here today can be regarded as a quick response to Xiao Siming's expectations. I guess when Xiao Siming saw his disguised fat tiger appear in front of him, the surprise in his heart was not only because of the reunion. It was also because it was so fast. Dayu smiled, if you had such a comprehensive thinking back then, you wouldn't have been kicked off the stage. Can you not mention the old emperor calendar? Xia Guixuan said, if I hadn't been kicked off the stage, there might not be a Xia Guixuan in the world. If Grandpa knows, I hope you can give me more guidance. If the other party is strong, of course I hope to get help from the ancestors. There is no point in trying to be a hero, Dayu said, I'm not trying to beat around the bush with you, because there are so many things to talk about, and I can only tell you part by part. I talked about how we mortals become saints, and the origin of Taichu and Taishi. I think you pay more attention to the gods with duties, such as Xiao Siming. Xia Guixuan coughed, well, of course I pay more attention to Grandpa, don't give me that. Dayu smiled, as far as we know, there are two sources of gods with duties. Xia Guixuan listened solemnly. The first type, such as Xiring and Rushu, some were bestowed by Zhuangzhou and were in charge of the priests. For example, those who offered sacrifices to the autumn harvest gradually became the representatives of the golden god. This is what was mentioned before. And many gods in later generations actually came from this. Of course, this kind of conferment requires the recognition of all living beings, the gathering of willpower, and the continuous legend, before it can be condensed and not dispersed. It is the predecessor of the incense and fire way. Xia Guixuan nodded and said, I know this. It was the same earlier. Fengbo and Yashi were nothing more than the sacrifices of Huangdi, but there are some details that you may not know, and now you should connect them together. Dayu said, in ancient times, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth was rich, and it was easy to become immortals and gods. We can also figure out the method of cultivation ourselves. Fuxi deduced the 8 trigrams, and Zuanilan deduced the Nijing. The way of cultivation has been opened, and mortals can cultivate immortals and become gods. Well, it can be said to be self-created, or it can be said to be created with the intention of Taichu. Xia Guixuan said, if Taichu is the way of heaven, then it is indeed inseparable from it. Dayu nodded and said, but the question is, the human priests are appointed by the emperor, who will govern them after they become immortals? At that time, we did not have the heaven, and the difference between the emperor of man and the emperor of heaven was very subtle. It can even be said that the emperor of man was speaking for the emperor of heaven. Xia Guixuan thought for a moment, so it was Taichu who divided heaven and man, occupied the position of the emperor of heaven, and established certain rules, not entirely. Taichu is not a human, it is just a kind of will, if you want to say it, it is the will of heaven, and it is originally the emperor of heaven. The will of heaven resonates with us, which is the command of heaven. This is ultimately very vague, so Taichu believes that there is a need for heaven, with detailed division and management. Xia Guixuan nodded slightly and did not interrupt. This is the process of building from disorder to order, which is nothing wrong in itself. It is a bit subtle that Taichu is not a human. In addition, from Grandpa's words, we can hear that Grandpa really has no opinion on Taichu. This may not necessarily be because Taichu has done a good job, but since he was still immortal, he has been feeling the will of heaven, just like the little fox Zhaowai and the others saw him bow his head, and instinctively follow the guidance. Maybe there are dissatisfactions sometimes, but because it is will of heaven, he always accepts it. After all, Xia Guixuan himself has been an emperor and knows it very well. Everyone has relied on the name of will of heaven to do things for themselves. The emperor of man speaks for the emperor of heaven can be regarded as a vested interest, but it is not the kind of people who would curse the thief heaven. And this time, because of Xia Guixuan's bloodline, Taichus will finally conflict with the Yanhuang lineage and cause controversy. This is because the Yanhuang lineage itself has this contradiction, both following the will of heaven and going against it. When the water floods the earth, other countries may take a boat to escape, but for them, it is the father who wants to lead the people to control the flood, and the son will continue after the father dies, but it is not following the Shida destiny. This time it is still vivid. When we were going to establish the heaven realm, there was a question. Who would be the heavenly emperor? Originally, Taichu could have done it himself, and everyone might not have had any objections, Deyu said, but Taichu made a very strange decision. It divided the heaven realm into several, and one heavenly emperor corresponded to one human emperor. We don't quite understand the reason now. It seems like a kind of observation, and also like a kind of breeding. Xia Guixuan raised his eyebrows. Deyu said, when we established Xia, the heavenly emperor we respected was Tai, also known as Donghuang, and the heaven realm was the Donghuang realm. The Dongai heavenly emperor was Dijin, and you also know the other systems. Tai was transformed by the will of the Donghuang realm, and the Donghuang realm was created by Taichu. In this sense, Tai was indeed man-made, although he was not a robot. Xia Guixuan took a deep breath and became clearer. People like Xiring and Rushao can be in charge of metal, wood, water, fire, spring, summer, autumn and winter, but there are still other duties that need to be subdivided, Deyu said slowly. Taichu did not let the human emperor take away all the power to confer gods. After all, the Eastern Emperor realm and the human world are no longer the same. He created some of them himself, and then the second type of gods in charge of duties were born, Xia Guixuan added. For example, the Eastern Emperor realm also has heaven and earth. The heaven is Yanzhuangjin, and the earth is Da Siming. The Eastern Emperor realm also has people, and human life and reproduction are Shao Siming. The Eastern Emperor realm also has the sun and the moon, which are Dongjin. These are the 5 gods in heaven, Deyu said. Yes, as for the earth gods such as Hebo and Shangui, they were still conferred by the human emperor. For example, in the later Chu, the Xiang River was a river, so an additional Xiang Furen was sacrificed. In our time, Hebo was the Yellow River. These are closely related to the human world. Then sacrifice to human ghosts and national martyrs, and the 9 songs of sacrifice to gods came from this, Xia Guixuan said word by word. So, Shao Siming is a deity created by Taichu, who is in charge of marriage and reproduction. Since their birth, they have no memory of their own practice, the memory of their parents, and even no name. It's as if they have been in charge of marriage since the beginning of the world. That's it. She is not the digitalized deity that he had speculated earlier. Digitalized deities are just his own exploration of the path of artificial creation of gods. In fact, creating a person or a god is quite easy after reaching a certain level of practice, and there are many ways to do it. She is indeed a man-made god. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 587 6 Surprises. Xia Guixuan looked very calm, because these things had been expected long ago, and now it was just for the final verification. It's just like that. No matter where my sister came from, she is my sister. Compared with mortals like Dea who have become saints, my sister is more likely to be directly controlled. They will be in charge of whatever heavenly way tells them to do, and they will kill whoever they are told to kill. Just like the various digital gods in the Kanglong Star region now, they will obviously listen to Xia Guixuan's instructions. Their duties, abilities, and even thoughts can be modified as they want. Even if Yanzhuangjin Da Siming and others set a trap to kill him, Xia Guixuan would not be surprised. It's not their fault. But because of this, it is even more precious for a sister who can hold on to her own thinking and resist the will of heaven because of strong emotions. Seeing her playing the piano calmly on the surface, it must be very hard. It's so hard that the strings of the piano broke. Dayu looked at Xia Guixuan's expression, and then looked at Ahu, who was sitting quietly on the side, and exclaimed in his heart, "This husband is really awesome." In front of one granddaughter-in-law, he clearly showed his worry and longing for the other granddaughter-in-law. The key point is that this so-called chaos and destruction-oriented chaos was actually honest and didn't even have an unhappy expression. The little hand was still holding his. "You held hands and ate for so long, you really can eat." The old man coughed twice and took a sip of wine. "Where were you talking about just now?" Xia Guixuan said. "It was said that some gods were created by Taichu." "Oh, yes," Dayu said, "but this is a different time. At that time, mortals could be said to need gods very much. It was not only a process of understanding the world, but also a kind of spiritual sustenance and guidance, but now it is not needed." Xia Guixuan's heart moved. "It has been unnecessary since a long time ago." Dayu drank leisurely. "I've said before that people don't need emperors or gods. We voluntarily don't go out. What about others?" So Taichu instigated the war of the kingdom of gods, leading to the twilight of the gods, returning the man-made gods to backup, and all mortals who become gods to Kunlun. "Yes, the whole vast expanse is so clean," Dayu said. "It sounds good for mortals, but you said there is a but." "Obviously there is," Xia Guixuan said. "It is afraid that a genius will rise and shake its own position or even replace it. It is better to kill them all. Especially those who have proved the peak of taking, who are only one step away from reaching the same level as it, and must return to the void." Dayu smiled and said, "Why do you think so?" "Because I have seen with my own eyes that a demon god devoured spiritual energy and shook the rituals, causing the earth to lose all spiritual energy and mortals to have no hope of becoming immortals. At that time, I thought it was caused by the selfishness of this demon god. Now think about it, isn't it also a man-made demon god? Has its behavior been guided by some kind of hint? Now it seems that there is." Dayu smiled and nodded. Xia Guixuan had seen and heard as much as anyone else, so it was easy for him to piece together the clues. "So the real selfish one was actually Taichu," Xia Guixuan said calmly. "On the one hand, he blocked the path of all mortals to become immortals, and on the other hand, he was worried that the immortals and gods were too powerful. Under the pretext of doing good for mortals, he instigated the twilight of the gods. And for you, since the path of mortals to become immortals has been lost, then it is not a bad idea to destroy all immortals and gods. You agree with the twilight?" Dayu smiled and said, "That's right. From another perspective, the unification of the human world is a trend. So even if the light in the heavens is not extinguished, there must be only one left to match. This is also a law. Of course, if you say that a law is the way of heaven, it is the intention of Taichu, that's fine too," Xia Guixuan said. "In the end, I unified everything. You may be very happy and promising. But Taichu is hesitant." "That's right, because your rise was an accident. No one expected it in advance, and Taichu didn't expect it either." Dayu smiled. "In the trajectory of fate, there was no Xia Guixuan. Tai and Dijin were both defeated, and the two realms perished together. The Western gods also died in the melee and were all archived. The world reopened, the three pure ones and the four imperials replaced the original realms, and established a Lord of Heaven. Isn't there one in this realm now? The one that was beaten by the monkey. I don't interfere with other heavens, and my sister didn't expand after succeeding to the throne. Isn't it good for everyone to live in peace? That's because you ran away." Dayu's expression became very strange. "If you had worked hard and made progress courageously, you would be the one who unified the fairy world, and you would be the Lord of Heaven. I don't know if you would still be beaten by the monkey, Xia Guixuan. Maybe I won't be beaten by the monkey, but I will be beaten by Taichu. The Haoshan that Taichu wants is definitely not me. If Hongjin is also referring to it, then it wants to let the boy around it take charge, so that we won't be able to be the Emperor of Heaven steadily and break through to the supreme level at any time." "Yes, why do I say you are an accident? First, your bloodline is an accident. Second, it is an accident that such a useless and incompetent monarch like you can rise. Third, you are not a saint through merit or a god, but you have practiced step by step on your own, and you have the foundation to break free from the cage. Fourth, you are practicing the star dragon transformation that I realized after I became a saint. It responds to the galaxy above and affects all living beings below. Even the tools you use are all things of Yan Huang Xiaoyu. Everything has nothing to do with it and is uncontrollable. Taichu would not be willing to let me practice well. Originally, I was only in the middle stage of taking. He was waiting to see if there would be someone who could challenge me, such as accidentally dying in the hands of Luo Hao, or Dijun reviving and taking revenge, or going hundreds of thousands of years ago and not being able to come back. In short, it is not the time for him to take action yet, and it can be regarded as giving the Yin Xiaoru lineage some face. Dayu smiled and said, "We also think that if you were at the peak of taking at that time, he would probably take action directly. But you ran away. This is the fifth accident. If Teichu was a person, we think it might have circles in its eyes." Xia Guixuan, thinking about it from Teichu's perspective, it seems quite speechless. Of course Teichu would not just let you go. It secretly recovered from Dijun's injury and fought with you in a foreign land. It just so happened that Xiao Siming hated your ruthlessness and turned against you, injuring you to death. Until this moment, Teichu stopped caring about you. Everyone thought you were useless. Dayu sighed. I also thought you were useless at that time. Even if you recovered from your injury, you couldn't keep up. What's more, your closest and most loyal subordinates turned against you collectively, and you had no one to use. He paused and added, it's useless to rely on you, the descendant of the Kanglong star. No matter how you deduce, Dijun's Zelter could have defeated the descendants of the gods long ago. The real surprise was that a Chinese fleet got lost here. That was the catfish that completely disrupted the Zelter galaxy. To this day, we still don't know why there was this loss. It seems that there is another supreme hand that is causing trouble for Teichu. This is the sixth surprise. Xia Guixuan's heart moved, and he remembered that Ahua had mentioned unintentionally that there was more than one supreme in the world, and Teichu had to deal with more than just these internal troubles, otherwise he would be killed, and offending the Yan Huang lineage was only a temporary matter. Why should he keep indulging and watching how Xia Guixuan would get into accidents? Is there someone outside who doesn't like it and is causing trouble for it? For example, the half-step supreme being that he had met on the road, was also from China. If he returned to his hometown, would he do something? P.S. The second full subscription extra chapter came out yesterday. The Kidian version has been updated, and the extra chapter is no longer at the end, but after chapter 583. The first extra chapter is now after chapter 284, probably because it was placed according to the release time. Extra chapter 2 is very good, with as many as 7,000 words. Chapter 588, whether there are outsiders causing trouble to Teichu on my planet is just a guess. Regardless of whether there are outsiders or not, I cannot use this information immediately, so it is of little significance for the time being. What is really certain is the sister's heart. Her confession aroused him and she later chased and injured him. In fact, to some extent, this was all to save him. And this is not an accident. Sister should have known it in her heart. Maybe she doesn't know it in detail, but she has a sense of it. Siming is responsible for destiny. Sister's sense of destiny is not as good as the great Siming, but at least she has some experience. With her taking ability, she must have a sense of the fortune and misfortune of the people she cares about most. She felt that it was dangerous for him to continue. She felt that it might be better for him to be weak. She felt that he could only come back after he became supreme. This is not a man lying to himself. Since the sentence returning home must be dressed in brocade at the beginning, it proves that sister must have known something. Then mixed with her own blackening and hatred, this unexpected change occurred, because she really hated it so much that Teichu felt her hatred and didn't distinguish her mixed meaning. Xia Guixuan's heart was like a pot of 5 flavors overturned, with a real mixture of emotions. Human emotions are the most complicated things. Love and hate are intertwined, and even the laws of nature cannot tell the difference. In other words, my sister really still hates me in her heart. So when Kanglong met me, she seemed to be full of emotions, but she left resolutely in the end, without even a good look. Well, maybe Kanglong hated me even more after meeting me. Xia Guixuan, you said you don't talk about feelings. Why are there so many girls around you now? The name of the wedding dress tells all the twists and turns in her heart. But she is still afraid that something will happen to her, and hopes to live a good life. When she came back, she also hinted that she should find Grandpa to clarify the whole story first, and not be reckless. Even if her opponent may be her father god. Ahua smiled and licked herself. How could she not lick? She wanted to hold her in her arms and lick her from top to bottom. Okay. Dayu ate the fish slowly. After he digested the cause and effect, he slowly spoke again. For now, we agree with some of Teichu's ideas, but we also oppose other ideas. And this opposition has become more and more prominent over the years, because this is originally our plane. Teichu has made great contributions to the expansion of the universe, but it does not mean that we can let it do whatever it wants with everything in our native land. To put it bluntly, even if it is the way of heaven, why do we have to listen to the way of heaven? Xia Guixuan smiled and said The most important thing is that we don't know what Teichu wants to do at all, and what its ultimate goal is. Why did it blow up Sun's wife to expand the universe? Why did it allow Qianling fantasy realm to annex the heavens and search for Sun's wife's remains, but did not stop it? This is contrary to its intention of creating the world. Does it want to create the world or destroy the world? Xia Guixuan seemed to be thinking. Or is it that the heaven, whether it is the creation or destruction of the world, is just a process of observation? After it has seen what it wants to see, it can destroy it, just like it created so many heavens and guided them to be destroyed for fun. Is it just this? And it has extended this meaning to the universe. Watching the process of the universe from birth to death, Xia Guixuan said lightly, maybe. When this process is uncontrollable, it can't sit still. The changes in the Taiyan plane prove that all living things, and even the civilization of a world, are just experimental toys in its eyes. The style is there, but it is cold. In fact, this contradiction was not sharp, Dayu finally concluded. When the fuse was ignited by you, our direct descendant, the contradiction immediately became sharp. Gaia and others believed that it must be killed, but we disagreed. That's it. The mystery of Xia Guixuan's hometown, which he had been holding back for a long time, was completely solved here. Sure enough, my sister was right. The world is secretive, and we should ask our ancestors who have been watching for eternity. Now that all the causes and consequences have been made clear, I feel very comfortable. Unfortunately, Dayu also has many things that he cannot know. First of all, what Teichu was thinking, whether Dayu or Yanhong, could not be the worm in Teichu's stomach. Now we can only guess based on their performance. But no matter who it is, they are not qualified to play with the world and do whatever they want. They are not qualified to blow up Hahui, and they are not qualified to modify their sister. They are not qualified to set up the heaven for humans, and they are not qualified to cancel the ladder of cultivation for mortals. They are not qualified to say that you, Xia Guixuan, will die when you reach the peak of taking, and there is no other way. Who the hell are you? No matter what its ultimate goal is, why it chooses this plain tract, in short, these specific actions have made the relationship between the two sides irreconcilable. Secondly, Dayu obviously couldn't know Teichu's war arrangements, but Xia Guixuan knew that the war was definitely on the way. So Grandma was not here, and Grandpa was afraid that something would happen if a fight broke out, so he asked her to go to a safe place first. Kunlun was also on the verge of a war. Queen Mother of the West should be one of us. The most regrettable thing is that Dayu couldn't know where Teichu was, otherwise it would be the best strategy to attack him directly at this time. Theoretically, the location of Teichu should correspond to Qianling fantasy world, outside the 33 heavens, the so-called Cheyenne Waishan. But the location of Cheyenne Waishan is not like Qianling fantasy world. Xia Guixuan can find it whenever he wants. As for what to do specifically, I am afraid I still have to go back to be my sister's personal secretary for a few days to see if my sister has any other information. Xia Guixuan looked up and thought for a long time, and suddenly smiled. Why is it that all these things Grandpa said, in the end, it is still a sentence that my life is in my own hands, not in the hands of God. Dayu also smiled. Maybe this is an eternal theme. No, Xia Guixuan smiled slightly. I prefer to use another sentence to describe it. Oh, Dayu asked with interest. Which sentence? Since we are the native plane, what qualifications do others have to play around with us? Treat us like the Taiyan plane, mess with the heaven if they want, and restrict our practice if they want. Xia Guixuan stood up, pointed to the quiet blue star in the lower world, and said word by word, I was born and raised here, connected by blood. This is the source. This is my planet. I is not just Xia Guixuan. It is the billions of creatures on the planet. Everyone's fate is determined by themselves. If there is no need for emperors, and no need for immortals and gods, then the first one to leave is Teichu himself. Dayu looked at Xia Guixuan's determined face with admiration. He is very handsome, not greasy, and looks very much like his grandfather. In fact, he has long surpassed his ancestors in both ambition and ability. P.S. If you can't see the new extra, check the Kidian version. It must be above 79128. PS2, as soon as Lao Xia said this is my planet today, the basic concept of this book has been fully unfolded. This theme refers not only to Kanglong Star, but also to the earth. At the same time, it corresponds to Xia Guixuan's two identities as Kanglong Father God and Xiahao Taikang, which echo each other from beginning to end. I have always had a very stubborn theme, topic, and cause and effect logic of correlation and progression, and I think the conception is ingenious. Unfortunately, I now find that most readers don't need these. Chapter 589 What is Family Affairs? Xia Guixuan did not stay long in the end. Although Dayu wanted his grandson to accompany him more, so that he talked about a lot of things, and he finished eating a fish weighing dozens of kilograms before he finished the whole story, but that was all. Even the grandmother had hidden away. Everyone knew that it was a stormy time. Could she still have time to stay here to bask in the sun? No matter how confident Xia Guixuan was in hiding for half an hour was obviously not the same level of difficulty as hiding for a day. It was already quite good to be able to accompany him to finish a meal. Under the premise of hiding the eavesdropping and the appearance of the phenomenon, outsiders could only know that Xiao Siming sent an envoy to see Dayu and was kept for a meal. It was time to withdraw after the meal, otherwise he would be exposed. Once it was really discovered that he, Xia Guixuan, was here, the wind and clouds would immediately start a war, and Kunlun would change. This was not the time. It might lead to pitting his grandfather and ancestors, so he should take it slow and see if he could discuss it with his sister. The envoy, Little Tiger, left Kunlun with the Gundam in his arms. Ahua was lying in the cabin of the Gundam after eating so much. She didn't say anything during the meal, acting like a good little wife. After leaving Kunlun, Xia Guixuan was very curious. Why are you so honest today? Ahua lay flat in the cabin and touched her belly. I don't know how to talk to him. Why? Is it difficult to talk to my grandpa? Isn't he a very kind old man? He beats around the bush and talks too much nonsense. The old man chatters non-stop. I want to scold him, but I'm afraid of being beaten by you. Old man, please understand when you see your grandson. Don't get me wrong, it's not that I can't beat you. I just don't want you to embarrass yourself in front of grandpa. Should I thank you? Ahua said righteously. What do you think? Xia Guixuan thought about it, shook his head and laughed. It feels good when he doesn't talk. His eyes are kind, and your hands feel comfortable. The fish he cooks is delicious. Ahua touched her belly with satisfaction. He said the fish cooked by Xiao Siming is even more delicious, but I don't believe it. I'll let you eat it once and you'll believe it. But I didn't understand some of what he said, which is quite strange. Not really. Shouldn't you understand it? And you actually know more, but you don't know so much after the explosion. He said a lot of it is family affairs, and I only heard that people in your lineage will support you, but I didn't hear which family affairs. If it's family affairs, doesn't it count as internal fighting, because of you? He treats you as his granddaughter-in-law, and the relationship between Teichu and you must be a little subtle. Ahua was stunned, scratched her head and stopped talking. Because she couldn't figure out what the relationship between herself and Teichu was, there was a gap in her memory. Or simply put, before the explosion, it was not a human and had not formed its own consciousness, so it could not be judged. For a moment, I forgot to refute the so-called granddaughter-in-law. Of course, from Dayu's perspective, this is really a family affair. Doesn't it feel a bit like a war between one's own family and in-laws? In addition, the affairs of Chinese gods are really family affairs from our perspective. Such as the part where the human emperor spoke for the emperor of heaven. Xia Guixuan said, in ancient China, history and mythology are inseparable. It can also be considered that people deified them. The so-called sainthood through merit is not as good as the gods created by the will of all living beings. He paused and smiled. For example, Ziren is still the self-growing soil of heaven, but it was not like that before. Ahua asked curiously, what is that? The easternmost part of Mangshan, Fuyu Mountain, is the confluence of the Yellow River and the Luo River. The Yellow River flows into the Central Plains from here. My great-grandfather first controlled the water by filing the soil on the easternmost side of Mangshan. But here comes the problem. Mangshan is the burial place of emperors, especially the dragon head at the easternmost part. I don't know how many 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors are buried there. Ahua's expression became very strange. So you want to say that Ziren is grave soil? The so-called Gun stole the emperor's Ziren without waiting for the emperor's order. It means that my great-grandfather dug up the soil from our ancestors' graves to build a dam without waiting for permission. His crime was not failure in flood control, but stealing Ziren. Shun sent Ziren to kill him, because Ziren was also Zhuangsu's son, and he dug up his own grave, so he was executed by his own family. My grandfather had no choice but to admit the crime. Ziran thought I would seek revenge on him, but according to the rules at that time, what kind of revenge was there? I don't know how to comment on this kind of thing. Afterwards, people would probably cry out for injustice when they know about it, and Xia Guixuan cried out for injustice. So you say it's a family matter, awakens. If you don't tell me, no one would know. There's still Ziran in Kunlun now, yes. For example, the battle between Zuinitan and Xia was a battle between gods in the legend. The reason why Zuinitan's sword is becoming more and more powerful is also the blessing of the wishes of all living beings. The same is true for Nine Cauldrons, because no Chinese person would hope that Zuinitan's sword is not powerful and Nine Cauldrons is incapable. As long as China exists, these two things will be eternal. It is not surprising that Ziran has become a divine object, Ahu said. There were people before gods. This is the foundation of this plane. Your civilization is very interesting. I think Taichu must be afraid of your native civilization or have some ideas about it. Yes, otherwise why would he shake the rituals and disperse the spiritual energy? Why would he be afraid that we would become supreme and shake its existence? Xia Guixuan said. He built Dragon Domain and used Longmanyak. He wanted to imitate something, such as imitating our real dragon. In the end, it didn't work. It's not that culture, and the ugly imitation can only make it look weird. In the end, it's just a setting, so some things in Dragon Domain are connected with China. Is it some kind of attempt by Taichu? Now it seems to be the case, so you became the Eastern Emperor with such a background and got a glimpse of the peak of taking? Wow. It's really interesting. Everyone else was bound by the heavenly Dao oath and was in Kunlun Gixu, but you are the only weirdo who is still alive and kicking outside and planning to cultivate the supreme. If I were Taichu, I would also want to push you into Kunlun. Xia Guixuan laughed and took out a Gundam and weighed it. It's also because I met you. What really makes it feel uneasy is here, in the Gundam cabin, Ahu, who was chubby after eating, smiled. Xia Guixuan also stopped chatting, strode quickly, and disappeared in a flash. Your Majesty, the little tiger is back and is asking for an audience outside, the little maid reported to Xiao Siming cautiously, with some surprise in her tone. I didn't expect this little tiger to be so reliable. He came and went so quickly. Only your former majesty could be so calm about Qin Zin's trip to Kunlun. Your former majesty was not so calm. He almost died when he went to Kunlun, the little maid said. That's because your majesty opened a space channel for the little tiger, so he doesn't have to travel thousands of miles. That's it. Is there any difficulty? Xiao Siming waved his hand lazily. Drag him down and give him 80 lashes first. The little maid was stunned. Why, your majesty? He completed the task. Xiao Siming expressionless. His standing posture outside was not standard. The little maid, Xiao Siming yawned. What are you dawdling about? Take off your pants and beat me. This is a boring chapter, but I think the setting of Ziran Graves oil is very interesting. Once you accept it, you can never go back. Chapter 590 Debts to be repaid slowly. Are you sure you want to take off my pants? Xia Guixuan grabbed his belt and stepped back. That was the order of His Majesty. Don't blame us, little tiger. The maids blushed, turned their heads away from him, and rushed forward to grab him and untie his belt. Xia Guixuan made a swish sound and pretended to open it. The maids screamed and ran away. Your Majesty, help me, there's a pervert here. The defense here is not good. Xia Guixuan walked into the door leisurely with his pants in his hand. In fact, he didn't untie them at all, just to scare them. Even the other maids were gone inside. Xiao Siming stared at him with a frosty face. Are you still so proud? Don't dare. Xiao Siming took down the sword on the wall and slashed it down with a sheath. I told you to untie your belt, and I told you to be a hooligan. You act like a hooligan when you see a woman. Act like a hooligan. Xia Guixuan squatted down with his head in his hands. Ahua was overjoyed. 30 years in the east, 30 years in the west. This was the opposite of what happened on Kanglong Star. My sister disguised herself as a tiger girl and faced the father god cautiously. She had no way to deal with being teased. This time, Xia Guixuan disguised himself as a tiger boy to meet His Majesty Dong Huang. He dared not resist even when he was beaten. If he resisted, he would be exposed, right? This time, the domineering temperament could not be fully exerted. Xiao Siming still had a lot of hatred hidden in his belly. I wonder how this guy lives here. But judging from the way this licking dog looks, I'm afraid he is quite happy to be beaten. The maids carefully surrounded him and said excitedly, Your Majesty, You beat me well. Let's go get the pepper water tiger bench. Xia Guixuan held his head and gritted his teeth, glaring at them. It was my fault for not letting you sleep with me back then. Wait, and see how I will deal with you after the dust settles. Xiao Siming also knew why this guy acted like a hooligan, because at least half of these maids were originally serving him. Although he didn't touch them, in fact, the maids had blushed and looked at many parts of his body. It was normal to help him dress and wash. So it was very natural. But I still have to wake you up, because you are just a little tiger now. What if you are recognized if you show too much? God knows if anyone remembers yours. Xiao Siming sneered, isn't the tiger bench his own? Whoever wants to sit on it, sit for a whole day. Maid, we won't sit on it. We won't touch stinky men, okay? Xiao Siming rolled his eyes. If your former majesty knew, he would be very satisfied with your loyalty and chastity. The maids blushed and pinched the corners of their clothes. Not really. Xiao Siming's face was stern. So you think about your old master in front of me every day. Are you looking for death? The maids were frightened and pale. We dare not. All of you go and stand there as punishment. You are not allowed to enter without being summoned. Yes, the maids went out sniffing. Wait a moment, Xiao Siming said calmly. I have said before that if you complete the task, you will be granted the position of personal secretary. You can go to record it and assign him a position. Oh, his name is Fat Tiger. The maids wanted to persuade him, thinking that it was not good to use a man as a personal secretary. But seeing that His Majesty's face was as cold as frost today, it was probably not a good time to persuade him, so let's find an opportunity another day. Having said that, it is actually normal for a female leader to have a male secretary. As long as her thoughts are not impure, she is just a regular employee. Judging from His Majesty's mood today, maybe this little tiger will not be able to rise to the top, but will suffer on the contrary. What a poor little tiger, he ran into His Majesty's period for no reason. Alice. After watching the little maids leave and stand in the corner as punishment, Xia Guixuan raised his head and looked up. My elder sister always wears an elegant purple long dress. She has never worn a dragon crown or phoenix crown since she succeeded to the throne. Or, no, a long dress. You can't see anything from the bottom up. When I continued to look up, I met a pair of cold eyes. Where are you looking at? Xia Guixuan hurriedly smiled and said, I'm waiting for your Majesty's order. Xiao Siming nodded. You want to be my personal secretary, so you still have to abide by some rules. Xia Guixuan asked curiously, what rules? First of all, I have never allowed men to approach me, so you should wear women's clothes. Xia Guixuan, Arhua was so happy that she rolled over with her belly. Oh my god, why hasn't this fish been digested yet? It's so hard. Hurry up, wear women's clothes. Wear women's clothes. The first rule froze. Xia Guixuan squatted there, looking at Xiao Siming as if begging for mercy. That means you should change it. There's nothing I can do about it. Xiao Siming was unmoved with a stern face. You don't even say a soft word, and you want me to let you go? Is it that easy? Tui you wish. This time, I won't let you, little tiger, go. Xia Guixuan finally said helplessly, Your Majesty, I am a member of the Tiger Clan, and we are so powerful. If the Tiger Clan loses face, Your Majesty will not look good. Oh, you used the Tiger Clan to threaten me. Xiao Siming was angry and amused. This guy. It's really hard to make him surrender. He is too used to being high and mighty, and he is also a domineering boss when picking up girls. He really can't be humble. Xia Guixuan, you don't want to be inferior to others? Today, I must make you be inferior for once, so that I can relieve the hatred in my heart. Xia Guixuan was defending. Well, I'm not threatening the Tiger Clan. Your Majesty must not want the important tribes under your command to lose that spirit. Ha! Xiao Siming laughed. Can you still represent the Tiger Clan? Xia Guixuan said with a stiff face. I represent the future of the Tiger Clan. Xiao Siming really wanted to laugh. But his thoughts were a little complicated. It was this spirit that I liked about him, just like in the past. Representing the future. So he really supported the future of the Eastern Emperor realm. She thought absent-mindedly that if she really broke his pride, it would not be a good thing, and she did not want that. Then should she change? Xiao Siming pursed his lips and said lightly, you can't follow the first rule, so you should be punished. Xia Guixuan sighed, I am willing to be punished. Xiao Siming pointed to the Fuxi Kin on the Kin platform. This is an ancient artifact, a treasure of the acquired nature, which leads to the destiny of the innate nature and forms the invisible Bagua. Now that the strings are broken, It cannot be repaired by Fuxi himself, but we have other ways. Xia Guixuan knew what the way was, so he listened honestly. Your Majesty, please tell me clearly. The Tai platform is the core of this world. It gathers the power of earth, water, fire and wind in this world. Spirituality lies in it. Wind and thunder gather, and the great sound is inaudible, so it becomes the Donghuang bell, commanding the world. If someone holds the strings of the kin, stands in the center of the platform, forges it with the innate fire, and binds it with the innate gold, the wind and thunder from all directions will perform their 64 images, and the ancient inaudible sound will harmonize the sound, and Fuxi's kin can be repaired. Xia Guixuan pretended to make a circle. I don't understand. You don't need to understand. Xiao Siming smiled slightly. You just need to know that you have to hold the string, be burned by the innate fire, baptized by the innate thunder, penetrate the brain with the ancient sound, and reshape the Tai shape, for a full 49 days. Oh, right, she added, the Tai stage is not on the past, nor in the present. You go in and suffer for 49 days, and it will only take a moment to come out. Don't worry about staying there for too long. In addition, don't worry about dying, because you can be reshaped after death, endlessly. The maids outside shuddered and felt a little sympathy for this little tiger. So miserable. That kind of place is regarded as a tiger's den by His Majesty the Great Siming. It is said that you can come out after 14 days in it. Even the former Majesty only went in for 49 days. This little tiger's heart of the piano has to endure 49 days? Isn't it going in to die, and then reshaped after death, and tossed over and over again countless times? Just when the maids thought that little tiger was going to refuse, they heard him answer word by word, I am willing to die for your Majesty. The maids found it hard to understand. If you are not afraid of death, why are you afraid of wearing women's clothes? Why bother? Chapter 591 Tacit understanding. Of course the maids didn't know that to others, willing to die for your Majesty was a sign of loyalty, but to the two in the room, it was a love talk. How could Tai Terrace kill Xia Guixuan? He had stayed there for 49 days and took away the Donghuang bell. Not to mention dying and reshaping several times, he couldn't die even once, okay? What's more, now, he was just telling her that for you, I'm not afraid of death. This was the first time Xia Guixuan said such love words to Xiao Siming. Even when she dressed up as Xiao Jie to be his personal secretary, he didn't say it. At most, he said, will you be my arm? The identity angle was completely different. This was the first confession. Xiao Siming's heart was pounding. She was afraid that her mood swings were too drastic and would be sensed by the way of heaven, and she couldn't pretend anymore. She could only desperately find his black spots and strengthen her hatred. Think about his ruthlessness in the past. Think about how he was surrounded by people on Kanglong Star, and even his tiger-headed and tiger-brained appearance became a mistake. Who told you to meet me with such a silly look? Eat lotus root. Do you think saying a few nice words will work? Go die and reshape yourself. The maids found that His Majesty had become even colder, and his hatred was similar to the illusion that His Majesty had just escaped a few years ago. The next moment, the little tiger was kicked by His Majesty and kicked directly into the Tai temple on the top of another mountain. Xiao Siming followed him like a shadow, and before Xia Guixuan landed, he rolled him up and stuffed him directly into vortex in the middle of the platform. The whole move was so smooth and flowing that even Dongjin, who was guarding next to the high platform, was stunned. Your Majesty, you? Xiao Siming smiled elegantly. Punish an ignorant subordinate. Dongjin sighed and said, Your Majesty's resentment is still too strong. We can feel the resentment from a distance. In fact, there is no need. We injured him that year and most of our anger has been vented. There is no need to vent your anger on such a little cultivator. It's quite embarrassing. Xiao Siming sneered. He is really a good comrade and brother of Xia Guixuan. Dongjin was silent for a long time, and still said, Xia Guixuan rebelled and should be killed. We will not show mercy. Even if we are an enemy, he deserves respect. Even we think so. Why did you have a sister-brother relationship with him before? It's precisely because you only respect him that you can't understand my anger, Xiao Siming said coldly. It's killing anyway. What's the difference with what mentality you have? Would it be more comfortable for him to die with your mentality? Dongjin was speechless. In fact, whether it was Dongjin or Yun's Hongjin Da Siming and others, they were not without a sense of trance. They didn't know why they had determined that Xia Guixuan was a traitor. In the past, there was no heavenly rule in this regard, and it didn't say that it was a big deal for Donghuang to abdicate and leave. As a result, When Xia Guixuan left, everyone immediately assumed that this was called treason. It was so natural, as if it was a heavenly rule engraved in their blood. Anyway, everyone definitely didn't hate Xia Guixuan. On the contrary, everyone had respect for him. But since the current emperor hated him, and everyone thought he was a traitor, then if the emperor said to kill him, he would naturally be killed. This is the basic maintenance of a country. He could only say, "I'm afraid that your majesty's hatred will cover his heart and be detrimental to the Tao," Xiao Siming said coldly, "but my practice has not fallen behind. On the contrary, you have been at the peak of the formless peak all your life, and you haven't made any progress at all." Dongjin retreated in shame. Some things are really strange. The practice of these people seems to be innate, and at the same time, it seems that it will not change. It's as if it's a constant amount, and no matter how hard you try, it's useless. Xia Guixuan was a mortal who had come up through cultivation, and was not subject to this restriction. He was also the one that everyone had the greatest expectations on. Otherwise, he could not have succeeded Dong Huang just because he said so. That was the result of public recommendation. So when he ran away, everyone was really annoyed. But Xiao Siming was different. She had not made any progress in the past few years, and was also at the peak of Wuxiang. But later, she inexplicably broke through ticking, and was the only one among the 9 gods who had made progress in cultivation. This was also a big factor in everyone's tacit agreement that she would succeed him. Everyone expected her to replace the glory of Xia Guixuan's reign. Unfortunately, she only did one highlight, injuring Xia Guixuan. That was all. The overall pattern of unifying the kingdoms of the gods was completely shrunk, and they continued to keep their own piece of land. Now the world recognized another heaven, and the world had almost forgotten Jinuj. It didn't matter. Everyone didn't care. There was a kind of divine guidance in the dark. It was destiny and it should be done. But why Xiao Siming could be taking was still a mystery lingering in everyone's hearts. After being ridiculed like this, Dongjin finally couldn't stand it and ran away. Xiao Siming watched Dongjin run away, and ordered the guards around him, "You should also withdraw. The man I just threw into the Tai terrace was to repair the Fuxikin. This item is very important to me, and I should guard it personally to receive the light of destiny to cleanse it. You stay outside and don't let anyone disturb you." Yes, the guard did not doubt it and bowed and left. Xia Guixuan was in the vortex space, listening to the conversation outside, and he had a better understanding of the situation. Taichu did not dare to make a big move in modifying the gods he created, and it was not as good as his control over the digital gods of Kanglong Star. Perhaps because these gods have also been worshipped by thousands of people, especially with the worship of the Xia dynasty, the communication between heaven and man, and the inheritance of incense, they have their own divinity. Taichu's modification can only be subtle, according to certain rules, that is, the way of heaven that everyone can believe and recognize, and give a reason to convince yourself. It won't be too outrageous. For example, Yun's Hongjin and Dongjin are changed to hate themselves for no reason, which will probably cause downtime, and they can't understand why. It may also lead to conflicts in thinking, which will induce the awakening of self-will, which is called stealing chickens and losing rice. In other words, the East Emperor realm is still worth fighting for to a certain extent. The hatred of the elder sister is just right. The subordinates advised, and Taichu was satisfied. No matter how you look at it, she is a good general who can deal with Xia Guixuan, and can also help him suppress the group of people in the East Emperor realm. Xia Guixuan thinks this world is really amazing. In the eyes of the whole world, the elder sister actually has such a deep hatred for him. And she goes to accompany Grandpa from time to time, which makes people feel that she is not completely black, and Taichu will not doubt that she is not that kind of person. Too black will make people feel acting. It is precisely this contradiction, hating Xia Guixuan and being good to Deu, that makes people feel the complexity and reality of the heart. Not afraid of being known that she has a connection with Deu, it is even more open and frank, which shows that she doesn't know that someone is paying attention behind her. It was perfect. This was too tiring to act. I had to start from the other person's psychology and match it with the reality that had already happened. I was confused by the fake and the real. No wonder someone told her confidently that I would be beaten by her if I relied on cutouts. It was so annoying to compare myself with others. Thinking about it now, the pursuit back then was really a different destiny, and its significance continues to this day. And the Tai platform, where she sent to him and under the pretext of venting her anger on the little monk, of course it was also meaningful. Xia Guixuan looked around. Of course, he had been to this place before, but his understanding at that time was different from now. At that time, it seemed that this was the supreme holy land of the Donghuang realm, the gathering place of all the wonders, the place where the source of Tao evolved, and the starting point of the word Tai. That's right, Tai was derived from this, and the treasure Donghuang Bell was also a congenital treasure condensed and evolved from this. But now it seems, this is the foundation of Taichu's creation of this world, a baptismal place like the dragon domain leaping over the dragon gate. If I had died in it and reshaped it, I might not be myself anymore. This is also the strongest place in this world. If everyone sets an ambush to kill me, it must be to trigger the explosion of power here. At the same time, this is also the best way to spy on where Taichu is. The elder sister called it punishment and venting anger, but in fact it was a tacit understanding. Chapter 592 I stained my wedding dress with my blood. Xia Guixuan silently took out a broken string and placed it in the center for forging. It seemed that this also had its meaning, like gluing everyone's relationship together again. Could they be reunited? This must be done by him personally. And she watched it with her own eyes. Can it be called punishment or revenge? Yes. The wind and thunder gathered here, and the damage was extremely high, basically belonging to the half-step supreme offensive. Back then, Xia Guixuan was covered in wounds and successfully obtained the Donghuang Bell that was recast here after Tai fell, and achieved the Donghuang certificate. It was really a little bit that he almost died in it, and he only had half a breath left when he came out. It took a long time to recover. Today's practice is far better than that of the past. Of course, it is not impossible to be uninjured, but I dare not. Since this place may be the best place to find Taichu, on the other hand, Taichu can also more easily sense his existence. He can't drive too strong energy in it, especially it is easy to expose his unique means and breath of Xia Guixuan, so as not to attract attention. If you use your body to endure it, you won't be able to withstand a few blows. Xia Guixuan silently held up a shield, feeling the feeling of various injuries cutting on it. Such passive protection cannot completely block the damage. Occasionally, some injuries penetrated and cut into his body, burning his skin, just like a wind knife and frost sword cutting his flesh and blood, turning into the reconnection of the strings of a zither. Xia Guixuan suddenly had an idea, and even put away his clothes, quenching his upper body naked. If this kind of damage continues for a long time, it will damage the robes. Xiao Siming's eyes, which were silently watching from above, finally moved. Then she watched the first wound appear on his clearly defined muscles. The second wound. Not long after, his body was covered with bruises. The not long after scene above was actually more than 10 days inside, just like an accelerated playback, showing the wounds in front of her at a rapid speed. This does not mean that Xia Guixuan was at ease inside. On the contrary, it was like cutting flesh with a blunt knife, which was more painful. Some places were so deep that the bones were visible, but he still protected the strings without moving, and his expression did not change. In Xiao Siming's eyes, the face of the chubby little tiger had clearly turned into Xia Guixuan. He could not maintain the transformation. He didn't know if it would be exposed, but at this moment, neither of them cared. Maybe it was not a big problem. This kind of place is naturally concealed. As long as Taichu didn't deliberately look at who was inside, he couldn't see it. If he deliberately looked, Xia Guixuan would definitely be able to capture its will. This is mutual. What everyone pays more attention to is that this is still Xia Guixuan's confession. If you really want to talk about fighting the enemy, there are many ways. Why do you have to come in and be tortured by Lichi? Because you asked me to come. I am willing to die for your majesty. Have you come down? Xiao Siming's eyes fluctuated and gradually became hazy. Xia Guixuan looked up at her, not knowing whether he could see her. The two sides stared silently across the core of the realm. So many pasts, so many grievances, swirling like a vortex on the Tai platform. As if that vortex is the vortex in front of you, overlapping and cutting through the past and present. Xiao Siming gritted his teeth and suddenly stood aside. Xia Guixuan knew what she meant. Don't be distracted. I let you in here to know the situation of Taichu. Xia Guixuan closed his eyes silently and began to try to understand where Taichu was. He came in not just to confess his love, and he couldn't let down his sister who had been hiding in the world for so long. From here, it can be intuitively felt that the formation of the Eastern Emperor realm was relatively late, much later than the time when Ahua split, roughly the same period as the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors. It was simply a heaven created to correspond to the mortal civilization, which was completely consistent with what Deu said. In other words, this is not Dahua's body, but Teichu created it in other ways. No matter what method is used, there must be a core of creation, just like a person must have a heart and a computer must have a CPU, which is based on a logic evolution. This is the CPU of the Eastern Emperor realm. All beings born in this world are based on the logic of this world, and everything is very similar to the dragon race. Xia Guixuan can directly break through and modify this logic, but he will most likely not be able to compete with Teichu for control. This may be one of Teichu's own magic weapons. Exposing his true self to compete with a magic weapon is putting the cart before the horse. It is sad to say that the creatures of a world are actually living in other people's magic weapons, just a group of derivatives. Including Xia Guixuan himself. He has been struggling and practicing here for thousands of years. All life and death, sorrow and joy are just cold observations of others. He also made a backup for you and replaced you when needed. Xia Guixuan has no way to thank Teichu for creating this world. If it weren't for his accident, he would still be a chess piece in the hands of others. But unfortunately, Xia Guixuan was tortured here for more than 10 days, and he still couldn't find a way to sense the opponent without exposing his existence. For an enemy who may be stronger than himself, it seems to be a paradox to sense the opponent without exposing himself. There is no solution. Let Ahua out? It seems to be worse. Forget it, at least we can analyze the ability of Teichu by analyzing this magic weapon. The way to analyze is to let all its attacks leave marks on oneself, take it back for research, and analyze every law clearly. In addition, Xia Guixuan turned his head and looked around, and saw the misty time in this chaotic Tai space. He smiled slightly and stretched out his hand to capture the time up and down, from ancient times to the present. The past and the present merged into a river, the river water flowed lightly, the light and shadow were hazy, and gradually turned into a piece of light gauze in his hands. The time flowed, and it was beautiful. Distracted weaving finally made his already stretched passive defense exposed again. A thunderbolt hit his chest, causing a strong burning, charring his muscles, and even breaking his ribs. Xia Guixuan groaned, and finally took a step back, still holding the strings of the zither with one hand and continuing to weave with the other. This half-step retreat seemed to sound the clarion call of defeat. Wind, fire, thunder and lightning came raging, time ran wild. Space pierced, yin and yang exchanged, and in just an instant, he was turned into a bloody man. The bloody Xia Guixuan grinned and still held on. What are you doing? Xiao Siming appeared beside him angrily and anxiously. Your ability should not be so seriously injured, Xia Guixuan said, because it's been 49 days. You want to go out and waste time? Xiao Siming said angrily, the strings are not forged yet. What if you die here? Okay, you see, as if his words were fulfilled, the strings that were originally a little short of being completely glued together, suddenly completely restored to their original state after he finished these 4 words, with a faint precious light and smooth as new. Xia Guixuan took the light gauze in his hand, which had been stained bright red by his blood and looked a little hideous. Xia Guixuan handed the zither to Xiao Siming with great care and said, broken strings can be repaired, time can be restored. Since your majesty is short of wedding clothes, I would like to dye one with my blood and present the zither and clothes to your majesty. Xiao Siming was completely stunned. Chapter 593, Behind the cliff where being a sea king always leads to failure, there is a clear stream. Xia Guixuan was soaking in the spring water to recuperate, but he didn't take good care of his wounds. He still showed his head and looked at the pavilion by the stream not far away. Xiao Siming was playing the zither in the pavilion, adjusting the new strings, and lowered her head without looking at him. Seeing his sharp eyes, she felt uneasy, as if the little tiger would eat people. In fact, he is no longer a little tiger, and has returned to his original state. When Xiao Siming brought him to Hawaii to recuperate, no one saw it, and no one knew. He is already Xia Guixuan. Invisibly, it was as if Xia Guixuan came to her secretly for a tryst. She didn't know what to say, so she could only drive him into the spring to heal his wounds and not speak. Xia Guixuan's injuries looked very shocking, but in fact they were mainly external injuries. From their perspective, external injuries, no matter how serious they were just child's play, just like Ahua was blown into trillions of pieces. What other external injuries in the world were more terrifying than this? As long as you find the parts, you can put them together if you want. All Xia Guixuan had to do was to expel all the attached injuries, collect and analyze them, and then heal them by himself. Although it hurt, it had little effect on his combat effectiveness. In the face of a powerful enemy, no matter how sentimental one is, one should not injure oneself to the extent of losing combat effectiveness. Everyone knows this. But the bruises all over his body, which looked like a slow slicing, and the words "I will dye my wedding dress with my blood," completely disturbed Xiao Siming's thoughts. He still doesn't know what he was thinking. If he really affected his combat effectiveness, did it prove that he was right before? Sentiment will affect sword drawing. It also affects the brain. Many lovers behave like mentally retarded in the eyes of outsiders, just like he injured himself like this. No, it cannot be admitted that it is all like that. It is just that Xia Guixuan himself is mentally retarded. Who asked him to injure himself like this? Who wants your blood to be used as dye? Are you still looking? What are you looking at? Zhang, the sound wave hit, Xia Guixuan shrank his head, and the sound wave passed by the water, splashing a bunch of water. Xia Guixuan stuck his head out, and the water splashed back, gradually covering his head and face, and he was still smiling. A mud monkey, Xiao Siming rolled his eyes and lowered his head to play the piano. The strings have been tuned, and the wedding dress has been accepted. Xiao Siming doesn't know if this means anything. Anyway, he is confused. But the song he played in his hands was still subconsciously a healing song. The gentle sound waves penetrated his body, as if his sister's hand was soothing him, helping his body to heal. Xia Guixuan was so comfortable that he wanted to float in the water. Xiao Siming pouted and increased his fingering in anger. Hiss! Xia Guixuan continued to shrink back into the water and looked at her. Ahua floated in the Gundam cabin, rounder and more floating than Xia Guixuan. It's not that the fish has not digested it, but that they are full of a new round of dog food. Even if this pair of dogs and bitches don't have a single word of dialogue. Can cultured people fill people up with music and eye contact? Back to the point, Ahua had been forgetting one thing. Xia Guixuan was naked. And it was in his arms before, where should it be now? Xia Guixuan felt a little itchy and scratched his crotch. Ahua, Xiao Siming, come out, she gritted her teeth and said, this spring water has no therapeutic effect, why do you keep soaking in it? Xia Guixuan said, I'm shy, you bastard, come out. Xia Guixuan flashed out and appeared directly beside her. The wounds on his body had indeed healed for the most part, and there were still a few deeper wounds with scars, which made him look even more wild. So close, Xiao Siming seemed to be able to feel the warm breath emanating from him, as if she would be in his arms if she turned sideways. Her heart was pounding, and she tried to suppress the surging emotion so as not to alert Taichu. She said lightly, give me the robe. Xia Guixuan was stunned, took out the robe from the ring and handed it over. Xiao Siming unfolded the robe and whispered, I used to give it a belt, but later when I saw Change didn't have a magic weapon when she went out, I changed it and gave it to her. I've also woven a new one these days, which is better than the original one. Including the robe, I also want to upgrade it. Since you left, you haven't modified it, and the protection is not up to par. Ahua thought to herself, why you are chattering like old man Deu, but when she glanced at Xia Guixuan, she saw that his eyes were as soft as water, staring at Xiao Siming's profile in silence. Ahua rolled her eyes. It's just weaving clothes, you are just weaving for each other, what's so touching about it? Do you believe that I, Ahua, can also weave one? No, why should I weave one? You, Xia Guixuan, changed clothes for me by changing them, why don't you find some good materials to weave one? Why don't you dye it with blood? Ahua started to get angry. But she saw that Xiao Siming took out a needle and thread from somewhere and really started to modify the robe. Seeing Xia Guixuan standing there blankly, he said casually, put on your underwear first. What does it look like to stand here naked? Oh, Xia Guixuan took out his underwear and put it on. Xiao Siming turned his head and took a look. The air suddenly froze. Ahua's eyes lit up. Xia Guixuan looked down with a stiff neck and saw the fox sticker on the underwear. It seemed to be an integrated smart computer and communicator. Xiao Siming stared at the fox sticker with a green face. The tenderness in his eyes slowly disappeared and turned into rage. Xia Guixuan stepped back step by step, sweating profusely. No, it's not what you think. Do you believe me when I say it's a watch? Go to hell. Xia Guixuan, the robe turned into a huge fly swatter and whistled over. With a bang, Xia Guixuan fell into the distant mountain like a cannonball, and his whole body was inserted into it, with his 2 feet twitching outside. Ahua was overjoyed. Ha 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 ha, King Xia Hai, you have come to this day too. Xia Guixuan was pulled out of the mountain by the maids like pulling a carrot. When he was pulled out, he consciously turned into a little tiger. The maids looked at the little tiger with a face full of despair and felt very sympathetic, thinking that if we were bullied by His Majesty like this, we would also be despairing, too miserable. Little did they know that everyone's despair was not the same. Xia Guixuan's blood was spilled all over the floor. He thought he could directly hit his sister's heart. But it turned out that the success was ruined by a fox sticker. Now he didn't know where to start the long journey. What's the big deal about being beaten twice? Having said that, this is not a lack of progress. It was a matter between the two of them before, which was relatively simple. Now it's his matter with other women. He rejected my sister with his so-called ruthless way, but he ran away and hugged others. This problem should be laid out and explained. But how to explain it? My sister is not change, she is not so submissive. Should I tell her that this is your fate, to be someone else's bride? It's too difficult. The maids threw him into Xiao Siming's backyard like trash, and were chased away by Xiao Siming. Xia Guixuan opened his eyes and looked at a pair of embroidered shoes standing next to him. Looking up, he saw his sister bending over and looking at him with a smile, with dimples on her pretty face. Oh, you're awake. Do you want me to do an operation and become a beautiful girl? Xia Guixuan felt that his sister's Yandir power was overflowing again. This is more terrifying than the power of the beginning. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 594. I practiced all this just to deal with you. Xiao Siming squatted beside him and reached out to stroke his face. As her slender hand stroked over, the little tiger turned back into Xia Guixuan. The little tiger was for outsiders to see. Xiao Siming only wanted to see Xia Guixuan. Xia Guixuan was still the same no matter how likable or annoying he was. After confirming this face, she took out a knife and gestured below him. Xia Guixuan, hand raised, knife fell. Xia Guixuan accurately grasped the white wrist, sweating profusely. Hey, are you serious? Xiao Siming glanced at him with dangerous eyes. What do you think? He began to increase the strength of his wrist. Xia Guixuan didn't care whether she was serious or just pretending. He felt that he could defend himself anyway. This thing was too deadly. It was not the time to hold his head and get beaten, even if it was just pretending. What if he missed? He struggled hard. The two of them competed, and they twisted into a ball unconsciously. Dang, the knife fell to the ground. Xia Guixuan pressed Xiao Siming. The two looked at each other breathlessly. Something flashed in their eyes, but it was unclear. The elder sister's strength now is not as strong as the little brat she was back then. Xia Guixuan suddenly thought that his elder sister might have known it would turn out like this, so she changed his face back first, because she didn't want to roll with the other faces like this. A dangerous light flashed in Xiao Siming's eyes, and she suddenly increased her strength. Xia Guixuan didn't argue anymore, and let her turn over and press him down. Xiao Siming seemed a little surprised by his sudden weakness, and didn't move, just quietly pressing him down and staring at each other in silence. Actually, after a long while, Xiao Siming gently stroked his face, whispering as if talking to himself, Taking is the cutest when he lies quietly in my sister's arms, and so is the little tiger. Xia Guixuan, how good it was at that time, saying that there is only my sister, and I will only be with my sister in this life. Xiao Siming whispered, once he becomes that powerful emperor, he will hurt my sister's heart, go wherever he wants, and even forget to turn his head to look at me. Xia Guixuan was about to speak. Xiao Siming raised his index finger to block his lips, and whispered, he said he wanted to practice bravely and not get close to women. In the end, there were so many women around him that my sister couldn't even find a place to stay. The index finger turned into the index and middle fingers, covering his lips to stop him from speaking. Don't talk, you are full of sweet words when you talk and lead people's thoughts astray. Xia Guixuan simply kissed the finger. He also licked it. Xiao Siming's face turned red like blood, and she retracted her fingers as if she had been electrocuted. This time it was Xia Guixuan who stretched out two fingers and covered her lips. Ahui, sister, Xia Guixuan called out this name for the first time since entering this world. You want to kill me? I have never hated you. Xiao Siming looked at him quietly, with a little panic in his eyes. When they met this time, they avoided the topic of the injury, Because this topic was tacitly taken as the theme when she went to Kanglong Star last time, so she honestly served as a personal secretary and served the king to make up for her mistakes. She did not dare to confront Xia Guixuan because she was timid. And this time, Xia Guixuan probably knew that there were other reasons for the injury besides the yandir, and they were mixed together. So this is not hatred, but maybe there is also gratitude. In Xia Guixuan's eyes, sister is always a god. So this time, Xia Guixuan began to pay off his debts, so he was punished as a subordinate tiger in various ways without complaint. But in Xiao Siming's heart, it was indeed she who injured him, and he was still timid. It would have been fine if he didn't mention it, but she felt guilty after mentioning it. She said forcefully, "I just want to hurt you, what's the matter?" "You still want to now," Xia Guixuan whispered. "If sister wants me to be weak, then be weak." Xiao Siming was stunned for a moment. But Xia Guixuan continued, "When everything is settled, I don't necessarily need any powerful strength. At that time, whatever strength sister says, I will use it to accompany sister." Xiao Siming stuttered. What about them? They, maybe it was because of my strength earlier, but not now," Xia Guixuan whispered. "In fact, sister doesn't want to monopolize it. Change was simply given to me by sister. Sister is angry because I don't accompany her, but fall in love with someone else." Xiao Siming gritted his teeth and said, "Don't you think cultivation is more important than me?" "So they are more important than cultivation," Xia Guixuan shook his head, "because in my eyes now, cultivation is not as important as sister. The reason why I still practice until now is just to protect sister." Xiao Siming widened his eyes. "Actually, it should have been like this back then. If it weren't for my sister, why would I succeed this useless Donghuang? I just got lost while walking, and thought that cultivation was the most important thing, putting the cart before the horse," Xia Guixuan said softly. "I'm awake, sister." Xiao Siming was stunned and speechless. Rather than saying that I was awakened by the tenderness of the little foxes, maybe it accounted for half. The other half, it was my sister who woke me up, Xia Guixuan said. After I came out of retreat, my heart was full of my sister. I had to live in the same place as my sister, and the scripts I filmed had to match my sister's plot. Mozu was so sad that she wanted to cry, because I regarded her as a substitute for another person. Xiao Siming suddenly flashed the words of the female swordsman in his mind. If I can meet that woman one day, I would like to ask her why. Taking did not lie, it was true. "Sister, you don't have to force me with a knife," Xia Guixuan finally said. "One day, I will be fine and stay by your side," Xiao Siming said in a panic. "Sure enough, he is full of sweet words," Xia Guixuan interrupted. "But isn't this what you want? A Taikang who can say sweet words, a Taikang who accompanies her gently." Xiao Siming stared at his eyes in a daze, and gradually became infatuated. He understood her now. It was not just the sweet words, but his eyes had seen through her heart. Even the way of heaven could not see through, but he did. She took a deep breath. "You have improved now, and the means to deal with women are specifically used to deal with me. Do you think you have mastered it?" Xia Guixuan said honestly. "To be honest, sister, I practice these just to deal with you. It's not to practice my eloquence, but to practice how to know your heart." Xiao Siming laughed dumbly. "You can say that. I think you have developed a thick skin," Xiao Siming finally said. "Empty words are useless. I don't care how you say it, I only care how you do it," Xia Guixuan said. "Kiss." Xiao Siming actually really wanted to kiss her. After pressing down on her for so long, she felt something. It was so natural for the two of them to talk in succession. She didn't even have the thought of getting up, and even wanted to lie there for a while. It was so comfortable. She coughed dryly and said with a stern face, "See if you can be a personal secretary and serve me as I need." Xia Guixuan said with a shameless face, "Serve me in the bed? I guarantee that your majesty will be satisfied." Xiao Siming smiled slightly. "Help me make a plan, just like your secretary did to you," Xia Guixuan said. "Your majesty, just give your orders. It's too simple." "Not bad," Xiao Siming said lightly. "Then accompany me to see the first plan, how to attack Kanglong Star." Chapter 595. It is not the mission of the Eastern Emperor realm at this stage for the traitors to attack the Kanglong Star openly. There are other people who are going to the battle, such as Gaia and others. The relationship between Donghuang realm and Xia Guixuan is very special. Taichu did not let them go to the battle, but used them to ambush Xia Guixuan. Of course, this ambush is not a dead weight. They also have to pay attention to the battle situation ahead and make adjustments at any time. For example, Xia Guixuan may not come to Donghuang realm. The so-called ambush is just a plan. According to conventional logic, Xia Guixuan should be preparing to fight Taichu himself at this time. Taichu is not a boss hiding in the tower waiting for the brave to break through. They will attack, okay. If the battle situation ahead is not favorable, or if the addition of Donghuang realm can crush Qianglongxing, then they will still go to the battle. If that time really comes, I am afraid that the Kunlun Yanhuang lineage will be forced to make a real choice of standing. The reason why it looks like it is just the eve of a storm is simply because Gaia and others are still on the way, and the situation has not yet reached the point of Mars hitting the Earth. But it will be a matter of time, and it will only be a few days. Taichu opened this space himself, even if it is not as magical as Ahua's Yuanshu channel, it will not take long. Xia Guixuan arrived here ahead of time. In fact, Gaia and others have been approaching Kanglong Star Domain in the past few days. Fighting a star domain war so far away is like a war between neighboring countries in ancient times. This is a game that belongs to the supreme powers. But it does not mean that ordinary people have to surrender. Xia Guixuan's Kanglong Star Domain, the three realms are too complete. The entire star domain is a huge overall formation, echoing up and down, maneuvering vertically and horizontally, and the whole body is affected by a single hair. It cannot be regarded as a huge star domain with leaks everywhere. You can enter as you like. It is not a funny heaven and earth formation like Ahua, which was almost used by the enemy in turn. The enemy must gather strength to attack one point. If they act separately, they will be crushed by the three realms formation, just like being rubbed by Xia Guixuan personally. At most, they can only disperse a few forces to defeat the frontal resistance of Kanglong Star Domain before considering other things. At this time, Kanglong Star Domain is strong in soldiers and horses. Unless Taichu takes action personally, everyone is really afraid of a head-on confrontation. Xia Guixuan was also waiting for Taichu to make a move. If it dared to make a move, Xia Guixuan could pass through the Ahu channel, and the two of them could take advantage of Taichu. Invisibly, Taichu and Xia Guixuan were still in a state of long-distance restraint. Taichu was looking for Xia Guixuan, and Xia Guixuan was looking for Taichu. Before they were sure where the other party was, no one could rashly show up. It was very similar to the template of the Zelt War at that time. Whoever showed up first would lose. In fact, the battles in the Kingdom of God have always been very similar templates, so the strength of subordinates is very important. If the subordinates are unreliable, then they can only be a lonely person, just like a bandit in front of a huge force, and it can't be called a battle in the Kingdom of God. So how the Battle of the Kanglong Star region is fought is very important. This is the most important moment to verify all the compositions of Xia Guixuan since he came out of seclusion, and it is also the moment to verify whether the little fox Xiaojiu and others arms or burdens. At this moment, the elder sister is the arm first, without a doubt. Because she is openly letting Xia Guixuan see the tactical records and even the route map this time. The so-called help me study how to attack Kanglong Star is actually to show Xia Guixuan the entire war layout. It's too open and above board. Gaia will appear with Uranus roughly in the location of the Zelter Star region. Chiao and Xingqian will appear in the location of the Kanglong main star. There are 100,000 heavenly soldiers, but there are no 3 pure ones and 4 imperial guards. Xiao Simon drew a star map, and the scene of the star region appeared in front of the two. Xia Guixuan knew why there were no 3 pure ones and 4 imperial guards. The 3 pure ones were the incarnation of Taichu, and they were transformed into the 3 pure ones in one breath. If they appeared, there might be only one of them, controlling the entire battle situation, and it would not be surprising for any of them to appear, the same concept. The 4 imperial guards were conferred by the Emperor of Man and became after experiencing the incense of the world. Their essence is very similar to the Eastern Emperor realm. They guard their own 1/3 acre of land and it is difficult for them to go on an expedition. Most of the other immortals and gods in the existing heavenly court were also mortals who ascended to immortality or were conferred gods. Each of them has a great relationship with the Yanhuang lineage. Take a monkey and you will see that the stick in his hand is still the one used by Day to control floods. This is why Taichu had a headache after the Yanhuang lineage took sides. It became a civil war. Either unify the opinions, or simply do not use it, or just reshuffle. If forced to modify or something like that, the consequences will be great, and mutiny is not impossible. Xia Guixuan felt that Taichu might plan to reshuffle, but now is definitely not the time. Xia Guixuan is eyeing it covetously, and Taichu can't afford such internal strife. If Xia Guixuan is dealt with, Taichu might start planning to reshuffle. Because of this, it is even more important to win. When will it be someone else's turn to arrange the affairs of the gods and people on earth? As for Qiyu and Xingdan, Xia Guixuan was mentally prepared. The one who came late in the Qianling fantasy world at the beginning, although he did not show up, should have been guessed to be Qiyu. They are also holy gods condensed by the will of all living beings, and the thoughts of later generations have gathered into demon gods and war gods and other very high-ranking gods. Their fighting will is highly respected, including Xia Guixuan himself. But unlike the Yanhuang lineage, they are hostile to Yanhuang in this matter, and most of the quarrels within Kunlun are related to this. Yanhuang wants to protect his great-grandson, so why does Chiao care if you die? They still have a very correct position. Preventing chaos from resurrecting is saving the universe. In this matter, it is the Yanhuang lineage that is protecting their shortcomings. The giant Ymir will start from the heavens and tear apart the three-realm structure of the Kanglong star region. This is a specialty of the gods of the world. Ymir, a Nordic giant of the world, is Gaia in Greece and Pantangu in China. Xia Guixuan had a blank expression on his face, but he breathed a sigh of relief in his heart. They are very strong. Qiao, Xingshan and Ouroboros should not have reached the supreme level, but both are taking. Gaia and Ymir should both be supreme. This lineup really regards the Kanglong star region as the biggest enemy, plus Taichu hidden behind. It is definitely the best of the best. It is quite an honor. One by one, the gods of creation, one by one, the ancient gods, descended on a star field mainly composed of mortals and ordinary cultivators. How lucky. But it is worth a sigh of relief that, to put it bluntly, everyone here is an enemy, including Qiyu. As long as there are no family members, this battle can be fought freely. Xiaojiu and the others must be happy to kill gods. Even if the opponent is very strong. Being strong does not mean having no weaknesses. Gaia Ymir's level is later than Ahua's. Ahua first became nothing, and then they established something. From the beginning, to Ahua, and then to them, they can be described by another word, Teisu. Well, too plain. Not yellow. In fact, it does not mean that, it refers to the beginning of the most primitive matter. After the thorough evolution of the orderly world, it is called Taiji. To put it bluntly, the innate 5-tier 5 processes. If you want to transform into human, theoretically it should only be transformed into 5 periods of a person. But now that it has been transformed into 5 different stages of life, each with a name, there is still a strong connection. The Battle of the Lunar Plane proved that Gaia could receive Ahua's formation, which was actually mutual. The abilities of Gaia and Ymir could theoretically be used by Ahua. Xiaojiu and the others who had studied Ahua for so long were well prepared for this. How? Xiao Siming roughly explained the star map and the composition of the expedition, and looked at Xia Guixuan with a smile. If we also join the war, how do you think we should fight? Xia Guixuan didn't want to fight. She just wanted to hug her sister and kiss her. This information came too timely. The jade pendant on the little fox, with Xia Guixuan's divine thoughts reserved, directly sounded the enemy's army composition and attack direction. The next moment, Xiaojiu, Yu Wulong, Yu Shangxiaoi and others all knew it. The subordinates of the Eastern Emperor realm who advised Xiao Siming not to be blinded by hatred could never have thought that they still wanted to fight to the death. And the emperor who was full of hatred had already surrendered. This idiot did it. Even if Ren Taichu was good at calculating, he could not have expected that he could do it so openly. Chapter 596 Personal Secretary. In my opinion, that unknown little star region across the way can't handle so many ancient powers. Xia Guixuan was seriously keeping a record for his sister. Your Majesty, just play the piano and sing in the East Emperor realm, and watch the flowers bloom. You still want to listen to songs? Wishful thinking. Oh, Xiao Siming coughed dryly to cover up. Whether we need to go to war or not, we must also prepare a war record. Xia Guixuan said, I am just a secretary, organizing the king's words and deeds, not a military advisor. Xiao Siming glared and said, I also have the responsibility of providing advice. Xia Guixuan said, I can't, I'm just a little tiger. The little tiger was beaten again. But it was just a slap on the head. He held his head and looked at his sister. His sister smiled with some anger, but she didn't really blame him. Xia Guixuan knew what his sister meant. See if he can provide some misleading plans. Don't do nothing and just pick up girls. But it doesn't really make sense. The East Emperor realm is far away from the front line, and any war plan provided will not be in Teichu's eyes, and it will even be transmitted very slowly. Even if it is successfully misled, Teichu will not be killed, and his sister will be convicted later. There is no need for it. Too much performance will make people confused. At this time, both sides can just wait. When Teichu showed up first, Xia Guixuan was the first to get impatient. While Xia Guixuan was flirting, he had been silently analyzing the previous injuries and energy composition. This was a good way to sense Teichu's ability, just like a Saint Xia would not be hit by the same move. Although this kind of damage was definitely much lower level and more rigid than Teichu himself, it was ultimately a glimpse of reference, which would give him some advantages in the battle. At the same time, he also tried his best to get familiar with Teichu's breath and sense Teichu's position through these, so that he could feel it as soon as it moved. So it was not like he was doing nothing. The only thing left was to observe the situation of the battle, and respond flexibly. The soul that was left in the fox jade pendant a long time ago had been silently observing everything. This was the confidence of his family no matter how many light years he traveled. Xiao Siming said, "It's reasonable for you not to make a proposal. After all, I don't know how much combat power and arrangements there are ahead. Making a plan at this time is just better than nothing, and it doesn't make much sense." Xia Guixuan knew what she meant. This was a reminder that what he knew now was not all, and there might be other strong people who were unknown. Xia Guixuan took up his pen and recorded, "The king wants to conquer Qianglong, and he asked Fat Tiger for advice." Fat Tiger advised, "The situation of the allied forces is not fully known. If you rashly offer advice, it may be just talk." The king agreed and gave up. Xiao Siming, Arhua felt that Xia Guixuan was clearly asking for a fight. Xiao Siming snatched the daily records and revised it himself. "The king wants to conquer Qianglong, and he asked Fat Tiger for advice." Fat Tiger was at a loss, and the king said angrily, "What use is there for you? You should be beheaded." Then he shouted, "Someone come, take this fat." Before he finished speaking, Xia Guixuan covered his mouth. Xiao Siming struggled twice, but heard Xia Guixuan whispered in his ear, "I am using my true face now. I don't want to change in front of them. It's troublesome." Xiao Siming snorted. Xia Guixuan let go of his hand and said softly, "The personal secretary is a private game between my sister and me. What does it have to do with others?" Xiao Siming said, "Then chop it for me." Xia Guixuan leaned over his shoulder and motioned to hit here. Xiao Siming hit it with his little fist and laughed. He thought he was so cute now. How could he be like this before? He seemed to be fulfilling his promise. If the dust settled, he would accompany his sister like this. This is what his sister wanted. Isn't it for this reason to break his legs and keep him by her side? At that time, strength and practice are really no longer important. They are just tools to protect important people. Looking back suddenly, the end of the road is what was originally abandoned. It has always been there. Unfortunately, there are still obstacles at this time, and everyone dares not even show it openly. Even the love in the heart must be suppressed, for fear that the hatred will disappear and Teichu will sense that something is wrong. Xia Guixuan was thinking in a trance, if Teichu represents the way of heaven, and the way of heaven represents law, then the original meaning is that such a broken mirror is difficult to be reunited in the objective law, and the mirror that is put together is not the original one, and the broken feelings are difficult to restore. And the purpose of practicing until now is just to break this objective law. In the form of conquering the way of heaven. In the form of human beings, get the god of marriage himself. Xiao Siming took a deep breath and said calmly, "Can the little tiger play music?" Xia Guixuan said, "I can." Xiao Siming said, "I play, you sing." The little maids heard His Majesty start playing the piano again. But the music played this time is different from the previous ones. The previous songs were either full of resentment, or deep resentment, or some regrets and self-harm. In short, they were not good luck. And this time, the music is brand new. I have never heard it before. It seems like it was originally sung live. It changed the mood of the past. It became calm, like the flowing water in the mountains, the white clouds floating. The sky and the sea are vast when you climb high. A flute sound was inserted in a somewhat clumsy way. It seemed to destroy the mood at first, but after listening carefully, it was barely in tune, as if a seabird was flying over the sponge quickly, splashing a bunch of water, and was about to fly away with a fish in its mouth. It was a beautiful picture. Then another fish came inexplicably and swallowed the bird. The fish and the bird fought together on the sea. After a while, the fish turned into a kun, and then jumped into a peng, soaring straight up, thousands of miles away. The original seabird spread its wings and became a swan, blocking the sun and the sky. The two birds flew away quickly. Only the clear sky and blue sea were left, and the white clouds were still there. The flute gradually stopped, the waves were swaying, and slowly condensed into a still picture. The maids could not hear the meaning behind it at all. They were already at a high level of exposure to the images they could feel, but the meaning was very montage, they could not understand it. But they missed it. How loving your majesty and the former majesty were when they were so harmonious, but unfortunately now. The brother and sister in the room stopped playing, stared at each other silently for a long time, and suddenly smiled at the same time. Xiao Siming lowered her head in embarrassment and looked at the strings on the table. The broken one was as clean as new. She slowly got up and walked to the window, looking at the waterfall in the distance. Xia Guixuan then put his arm around her waist from behind and rested his chin on her shoulder. Xiao Siming stiffened slightly, then slowly relaxed. The two of them just stared out the window motionlessly. The waterfall in the distance fell into the pool, the water splashed and fell, repeating over and over again, and after watching for a long time, it seemed to be still. After so many words telling me not to hit my child and to be reasonable, I just want to say, you can't even win a middle school student in a fair discussion on the forum. Who gave you the confidence to be reasonable with a real middle school student whose voice is 10 times louder than yours and he counters your words with 10 crooked arguments? Let's make a bet. 10 years later, when you look back, if you have hit your child once, give me a silver. How about that? Having said that, I don't want to win this bet. Because I didn't hit my child for more than 10 years, she lost her fear and became more and more difficult to discipline. Now I really regret being poisoned by stupid chicken soup. What can't hit and be reasonable, what hitting people can't solve the problem, these bullshit theories are all harming people. Maybe some special cases are okay, but most people still deserve to be hit. After hitting, at least they know which behaviors will be beaten and they know to be afraid. Just talking is useless. What kind of discipline is there? Where does the fear come from? It's better to hit yourself than to be beaten by others when you go out into society. Do you really think that everyone in society will give in to you like your parents? In a dream. Don't believe in stupid chicken soup and bragging textbooks. Those who write books have beaten themselves up, and then they write a book to tell you to be reasonable. Whoever believes it is a fool. You will regret it if you raise lawless people. I don't want silver. You must beat them up if you need to. Don't regret it like me. Try your best. Chapter 597, The Enemy at the Gate. Xia Guixuan's personal secretary did not last long. The drums of the Kanglong Star region shook the earth, breaking the company of the kin and flute. Well, this description is ominous. After all, it is something Xia Guixuan has been waiting for and paying attention to, which is different from the drums of Yuang. But the manifestations are very similar. In the response of the kin and flute, intoxicated by the company that seems to be unaware of the world, the soul sea alarms arose, breaking the music. The soul is spying, and the army is approaching Kanglong. Xia Guixuan woke up, and what he hated most in his heart was that these bastards disturbed the sweet relationship between him and his sister. He immediately realized that this attitude was wrong, a bit of putting the cart before the horse. He took a deep breath, his eyes were sharp in an instant, and he had entered a state of war. Xiao Siming looked at the changes in his eyes dimly, knowing that this was the note of fate. Boom! The violent power of the earth shook the three realms, and the stars in the direction of the Zelter star region were in chaos, with light and darkness interlaced, as if the entire star region was about to collapse. Two huge giants were suspended in the air, each giant was larger than a planet. Gaia, the mother of the earth, and Ouroboros, the god of the sky, who was derived from her fingertips, Zeus's grandfather. Supreme, the peak of taking. Behind the two giants were a vast army of giants, each of whom was at least strong enough to walk through the universe. Above Kainan, Yao Wu sat in Zelter, secretly thinking that it was fortunate that the master had launched a lightning raid and conquered the Qianling fantasy realm first when the strength ratio seemed to be seriously insufficient. Otherwise, by this time, the entire Olympus pantheon would come out, which would be a big trouble. Now, although the Supreme is strong, with the three realms in one formation, similar to Xia Guixuan's own protection, it is not impossible to bear it. It is said that everyone is an arm, but in the end, a truly strong enough core is needed, so that heroes can be gathered, giving everyone faith and courage. It is also the god that Zelter now fanatically believes in, and everyone needs this belief. Yawu also needs it. As early as the day she was conquered, Xia Guixuan was already the pillar of her existence. The most pious bishop, the purest life of light and darkness, can be said to live only to serve God, from ancient times to the present. With the Father God behind him, what is so great about being supreme? Yawu looked indifferently at the scene of giants dancing outside the star field, and said calmly, "The Supreme is coming, are you afraid?" Turin behind him smiled and said, "Everything is calculated by the Father God. Whether it is the last dragon attack or this giant attack, the Father God knows everything and has never deviated. Why should we be afraid?" Kang Lei also said, "We Zelt, whether it is the original energy race or the Beastman, our race born for war. All original energy research and flesh and blood magic exists to kill the enemy. In high-end battles, we may be slightly inferior, but now this kind of group combat. What's there to be afraid of?" Someone else said, "Even if twice as many giants come, it's just the same. We were conquered by the Father God because he is the Father God. We are just lost wanderers who return to the arms of the Father God. It doesn't mean that the two Zelt races are weak and can be bullied." The guardian of the Beastman Lorca said, "We are the strongest war race." Yawu's slender hand gradually turned into a blade, pointing to the distance, "Then attack. Tell them, no matter which world's creator gods they are, this is the Kanglong Star region. It's our place." Before Gaia blasted open the barrier of the realm, she saw tens of thousands of golden swallow-shaped warships flying in from the star regions in front, behind, left and right. They were elegant, noble, and exuded the most mysterious and profound aura in the universe. They didn't look like weapons of war at all, but like works of art that combined classicism with technology. At least with the civilizations of Gaia and Uranus, they had never seen such a thing. It was a future weapon that only existed in fantasy. Under the golden warship, the space suddenly twisted. Countless powerful powers were hidden under it, and it was filled with infinite breath of life. Gaia saw through the cover of time and space at a glance. Even with her knowledge, she couldn't help but be a little surprised. How many fleets are hiding under this? At a glance, there were countless giant aircraft carriers, fighters, pirate ships, and boundless high-level temples surrounding them. The red, white, and gold were all brilliant. The fanatics were covered in armor, the huge beetles were staring at them, and the dragon knights were in neat formation. The murderous aura in the sky was almost enough to shake the nebula. Is this the Zelt primordial tribe, which is known for its small population and one less person per death? You have done nothing in these years, just giving birth to children, right? The primordial tribe, which is famous for its small population, is so widespread. What about the orcs, which are famous for their large population? Uranus turned his head stiffly and saw all kinds of strange creatures that came out of nowhere in the universe. There were all kinds of strange shapes and sizes. There were so many dogs, thorns, snakes, flying dragons, lurkers, guardians, devourers, scorpions, and mammoths that could be lined up from one planet to another. Countless mother nests wandered in the void, and even the planets were blocked from view. Is this the orcs, who are said to be restricted from fish and reproduction and only given the resources of one planet to develop honestly? You guys haven't done anything in these years, just giving birth to babies, right? Do you have enough food to eat? Is the Cyanide star big enough for you to live in? When the four words endless resources are used to feed a few races, the huge army that has been raised in 30 years is enough to shock the Supreme. This terrifying number and indescribable will of living beings, to be honest, have exceeded the category of combat power. The blessing of the will of all living beings is complementary and qualitative for cultivators who practice the laws of Xia Guixuan. Their piety and willpower can bless Xia Guixuan's ability, and Xia Guixuan's ability can feed back to all living beings. With the blessing of the power of the three realms, the collective attack and defense are superimposed, and the morale is doubled. These two races were born very powerful, and now they are even more unpredictable. The aura of collective cohesion, Uranus dares to say that even he himself may not be able to kill easily. And the giants under his command are so stunned that their faces turn pale. 100,000 giants went to fight against a blue dragon, thinking they were just bragging. But it turned out that the other side was not just a bunch of monkeys in the mountains, but a terrifying monk with an astronomical number. It was just like a human falling into a colony of man-eating ants. How does it feel? That's not bad. At the level of Gaia and Ouroboros, they are no longer afraid of the feedback of karma of the common people. It doesn't matter how many people they kill. Gaia alone can kill countless lives. But the other side also has high-end combat power, holding back. Yao Wu's hand was like a blade, blocking Ouroboros. And standing in front of Gaia was Athena. Even if the mission is just to hold back, isn't the rank too low? Aren't you afraid of being defeated with one blow? What about the others? What about the new and old dragon gods? As if she could see what they were thinking, Yao Wu said calmly, "You are the supreme, but you are a wounded supreme. Maybe your strength has not been lost much, but the most important thing is that our Father God has deprived you of your real name in this starfield. No inch of land in this starfield can respond to you. You think you are the supreme, but in fact you have long ceased to be so, Father God." Gaia did not argue whether she was the supreme or not. It was too boring to argue about this. She looked up and down at Yao Wu, revealing a smile of "So that's it, he is not the God who created you, a false Father God. As for the real Father God, he is the God who created this universe and the one we represent this time. You seem to have mistaken him for your father, really." Yao Wu smiled slightly. "I'm sorry, Father God is just a verbal statement. My real name for him is Master, Gaia. You are still proud of this? And you said it with a smile? Is being a slave something great?" Yao Wu said calmly, "I am a slave voluntarily. I know what I am doing and what I need. He didn't force me to do anything. He respected my wishes and gave me the power to live in the star field without any suspicion." Gaia couldn't help but said, "You want to sleep with him? Is being toyed with by a man the price?" Yao Wu sighed, "It is he who wants to sleep with me and dance for him. I would not be happy if he didn't touch me. He hasn't touched me for all these years and I miss him." "Gaia," Yao Wu asked, "what about you? You don't want to sleep with him because no one wants you. You are too ugly." Gaia was too lazy to argue with her about this and was about to change the subject when she heard Yao Wu continue, "You don't know what you want, and you don't know what you want to do. You hide your name as a god and live in an unknown place. You don't see others outside and your descendants inside. You come all the way from billions of light years away when others ask you to beat someone. You say you are not a slave? But I think you are not even as good as a slave. You are just a corpse puppet." Chapter 598, Kissing is better than playing the piano in the empty city plan. Gaia was originally trying to sway Yao Wu. She thought that such a woman who was captured and trained as a slave could not have any willpower, and might collapse with just a few words. In the end, not only did it not work, but Yao Wu also defeated her, which made Gaia laugh and cry. Unfortunately, Yao Wu's counterattack did not work on Gaia either. She just smiled and said, "The queen is really good at talking. I've learned something." After that, she ignored Yao Wu, leaving Yao Wu with a lot to say but didn't know how to say it. She simply kept silent. No matter how badly Wuxian's status was lowered by Erhui, Wuxian was still Wuxian. Especially for a Wuxian like Gaia who might be too plain. Gaia's self-cultivation was much better than Yao Wu imagined, and her self-awareness was much firmer than Yao Wu imagined. Such a mouth cannon was like the wind blowing on her face, and it was impossible for a few words to persuade her. She was still looking down on him, like looking at a child being unruly, and she didn't even have much intention to argue. The only people she would be shocked and angry about would be Xia Guixuan and Erhui, because only by looking at each other squarely could she face up to how shocking the other person's performance was. And Athena. She was extremely shocked that Athena dared to use a spear against her, and it was the same now. "You?" Gaia looked at Athena, her tone more surprised than before. "You really dare to stand in front of me with a spear by yourself?" The last time Athena dared to use a spear, it was shocking that she was her identity. She dared to attack the god of creation of her own pantheon. From the perspective of the battle scene, it is understandable. After all, Xia Guixuan was the main force, and Athena was just a little bit surprised. It was enough for her to be brave enough. And this time, let alone Xia Guixuan, there was only Yao Wu beside Athena, and she dared. This courage is simply against the sky. It is impossible to rely on a formation that integrates the three realms. Who has not created the world? How long can it stump Gaia? What's more, the formation is just a dead object, and it's not Xia Guixuan himself standing here. At most, it can only be a kind of auxiliary. You still need to be strong yourself. The only explanation could be that Xia Guixuan was in charge of the center and could come at any time, which gave Athena confidence. They didn't know that Xia Guixuan dared not to be in the star field at this time. Athena knew what the other party was thinking, and said calmly, "The master is behind me, how can I not dare to stand?" Xiaowu complained in her heart. "By the way, why did you call the master? Did he ask you to call him like that? Oh, did you call him when you were confused? Is the fall of this goddess so thorough?" Athena's pretty face was stiff and she didn't look at Xiaowu. Her face was a little hot. She didn't know why she followed Xiaowu to call like that. Cough. Gaia's eyes passed Athena and looked at the depths of the deep star field. She was also a little afraid in her heart. This was Xia Guixuan's star field. He could appear in any place without any process. God knows where Xia Guixuan would appear. So she didn't dare to be careless at all, even though there were only 2 middle stage taking people in front of her. Xia Guixuan was not here, and this empty city plan could shock the Supreme. She was also waiting for the results of the war in other places so that she could make a more accurate judgment and response. It would be best if Xia Guixuan could not take care of the fires everywhere, so that she could crush him. Thinking of this, Gaia said lightly, "You also call master?" Xiaowu tilted her head. Athena stiffened her neck and said, "Why else? Call them father god? My mother goddess is Métis, does she agree?" "Gaia," Athena said again, "from the perspective of the mother goddess of the earth, the mother goddess is you, so what you mean is, in fact, you have always had a crush on my master." Gaia was stunned, and she held it in for a few seconds before saying, "Are you infected by chaos, or are you willing to be lowly?" It is very likely that she was really infected by the great chaos. After all, the real mother goddess may be her, but she always lets her great-granddaughter suffer from the blood-stained spear, and she is very excited. Judging from the trend, she may even send herself to verify the solar universe that Dijun said. Athena answered silently in her heart, "You don't understand the mind of chaos." But she only said, "I am who I am. Why is it that if I act beyond your cognition, I am infected by others or I am corrupted by myself? Can Athena only speak and act according to the set template?" Just like, she paused and looked at Uranus. Like him, Uranus was stunned and frowned. He had been listening to Gaia's speech honestly, but he didn't expect that the melon would be eaten by him. Yes, he is a god derived from Gaia, and can be regarded as molded by Gaia. So everything about him is also man-made. But his consciousness was only dazed for a moment, and soon his eyes became ferocious. "You betrayed yourself and lost your chastity. The old Athena can be regarded as dead. You are not worthy of Athena." Athena laughed dumbly. "It's useless for you to say whether I am or not." She stretched out her slender hand and pointed to the vast army of giants behind the 2 of them. "They all recognize me as Athena. In their eyes, I am Athena. What I hope most now is that the master can play with me in front of you and see all of you collapse in cognition." As if responding to her call, the tip of the spear suddenly flashed the shadow of Xia Guixuan, and soon condensed into a solid human form, hugged Athena and kissed her on the spot. Athena was stunned for a moment, and her cold expression quickly changed into a charming smile, and she coiled around like a snake. "Giant army, Gaia, Ouroboros, silence. Do you know that this is the time when the enemy is at the gate? Did you think it was the enemy at the gate on the bed?" Xia Guixuan deliberately split his soul to respond to Athena, of course not to proclaim his lust in public, but to declare his existence. As long as he is there, he is a threat. This is just a split soul. Even if Tetra seizes the opportunity to kill him, it will not affect the main body. To take containment and deterrence to the extreme, this so-called Supreme Army is actually just that. The scene was silent for a moment, and the vast Zeld army suddenly burst into thunderous applause. "Long live the father! Father, you play well. Father, do you want to try the female giant? I think she's okay. Bah, do you think the father has the same aesthetic taste as your beastman? Go to hell, father, don't be partial. What about our queen? Is our queen not as beautiful as this white woman? Don't be polite, father, we are not jealous." Xia Guixuan followed suit, holding Athena in one hand and Xiaowu in the other, and also lowered his head to kiss her. Xiaowu happily responded. The 2 women's heads unconsciously came together, making it convenient for him to kiss both at the same time. The Zeld army reveled, and the sound of the mountains and the sea was so loud that it could crack the outer wall of the warship. People's joys and sorrows were not shared. The giants had no idea what was so good about being kissed by the queen in public. What the hell were you so happy about? Their Athena was played like this, and it was a 1-on-2 fight. Everyone's mind was blank. All the aggressive fighting spirit they had when they came was gone. Talk about anger, what is there to be angry about? Athena volunteered. Look at her coquettish foxy look, twisting and turning like a maggot, and the seductiveness in her eyes was about to drip water. If it weren't for this crowd, I'm afraid these three would have fucked on the spot. Is this the goddess of war and chastity that everyone has believed in for a lifetime? Beat your sister. Gaia felt a little regretful in her heart, so she had to fight directly. What kind of melon was pulling in front of the battle? Not only did it fail to shake the opponent's will, but it humiliated herself and completely destroyed the morale of her own side. Xia Guixuan kissed for a while, let go of the panting Yawu Athena, looked back and smiled. Gaia, come on, I'm watching you. Gaia felt cold all over. What was this evil smile? I'm just a giant made of the earth. What do you want to do? Xia Guixuan finally hugged Yawu Athena and said, someone else over there is humiliating himself. I'll go over and take a look. These giants are left to you. After saying that, he disappeared. Leaving behind a scene that didn't look like a battle between two armies at all, everything was quiet. Chapter 599 Hua Xingtian? Xia Guixuan's deterrent power lies in the fact that not only Taichu himself will not appear easily, but his movements must be observed first. Even the leaders of the troops who are divided into several groups to attack the Kanglong Star domain have the same idea as Gaia. Talk nonsense in front of the battle first to test where Xia Guixuan will appear, or wait for a war to start somewhere else to attract Xia Guixuan's attention before they go up. Not to mention a mob, at least there are several different civilization leaders, and it is impossible to have more than one mind. When Gaia was talking nonsense with Yawu Athena, something similar was happening in the direction of Kanglong Star. Human warships were spread out silently, a silvery piece, like the Milky Way hanging in the sky. Every human was looking at the opponent on the projection screen, feeling extremely weird. Opposite was a vast ancient tribe dressed in animal skins, naked, roaring giant axes, and drums of war. Don't get me wrong, this is not for the tribe. It is one of the ancestors of China. Because they are the tribes of the demon gods Qiao and Xingtian. They represent the Qiao tribe and the Yin Emperor tribe respectively. Xiaxi is a descendant of Zuinan. Huangdi defeated Qiao in Zhulu, and defeated Yin Emperor in Bangquan, becoming the first overlord of the Central Plains. Today, Emperor Yan Shenan has become a saint for his merits and virtues, and has hidden himself in Kunlun, no longer interfering with these things. In fact, his tribe has long been integrated with the Zuinan tribe. It is hard to say whether Xia Guixuan has the blood of Emperor Yan. Every Chinese is called a descendant of Yan and Wang, and their blood is integrated. The ancient grudges have disappeared and have long been settled. Shenan is unlikely to make things difficult for Xia Guixuan. But his subordinate Xingtian refused to accept it. After being beheaded, he used his nipples as eyes and his navel as a mouth to fight Zuinan again. Although he was a loser, no descendants would regard him as an enemy. He is also one of the ancestors of the Chinese people, and at the same time he is a god, the god of war in people's hearts. His unyielding will and never give up spirit have inspired generations of Chinese people to move forward courageously. Perhaps his intention as the god of war is the condensation of the wishes of all living beings, representing and embodying the unyielding will of every generation of Chinese people. Being his enemy is a bit like defeating everyone's own will. The same is true for Qi Yu. He is a demon god, but he wins and loses. No one can tell how many descendants of Qi Yu there are in China. Perhaps everyone has the blood of his tribe flowing in their veins. It is the sedimentation of 5,000 years of vicissitudes. Every name is the source of China. Because they came first, then China came into being. Looking at these tribal armies, it seems like a dream back to the ancient times. The roaring war drums seem to be deep in my blood. I want to resonate with it and boil it. I wish I could be in it and see the past at the beginning of the era. This feeling of fighting with my ancestors makes people feel so complicated that it is hard to describe. Originally, the human warriors didn't know who the newcomers were. But Xingtian's appearance was so representative that everyone was stunned when they saw him for the first time. Then Xiao Jiu took the initiative to ask, are the newcomers Qiao and Xingtian? The other side was also stunned for a moment, and Qiao smiled. It seems that Xia Guixuan knows more than we thought, Xingtian said, not surprising. After these few words of dialogue, the entire war atmosphere changed. Both sides were silent for several minutes, without a single sound. Yan Wuai was very curious why Xiao Jiu took the initiative to reveal the other party's identity. Would this destroy morale? Even Qiyu asked this question, that girl, if we consider the war, you shouldn't reveal our identity to your subordinates. Just treat it as a battle with a group of barbarians who invaded their homeland, isn't it better? Xiao Jiayu smiled brightly. Since the senior said so, it shows that you are frank. Qiyu laughed. In fact, there are many of you who are close to Zuinitin in your bloodline, but not many who are close to me, Qiyu. There is no need to be so silent. It's okay to treat us as enemies. The more he said this, the more respect people had. Many people turned to look at Xiao Jiayu to see how she would answer. If she didn't answer well, she would be really upset. Xiao Jiayu smiled. Everyone's respect for you two lies in the source of civilization and a certain kind of sustenance of their aspirations. Thinking of your real name will give rise to respect, which is the way of becoming a god because of a person. If no one misses you, you may have disappeared long ago and will not appear in front of us. Qiyu nodded and said, that's right. But it's meaningless to say this now, Xiao Jiayu said. You two must have heard the story of Yigong's love of dragons. Are the dragons that Yigong likes really real dragons? Qiyu was stunned. What we respect is the source, the spirit, and the inheritance. For example, we hope that Xingtian's aspirations will be passed down forever, and we may not really want to see Xingtian and Qiyu appearing in front of us. Xiao Jiayu blinked. I wonder how much you two know about the current online terms. Have you heard of death in the light, Qiyu? Xingtian, do you mean we are too ugly? Regardless of whether they were afraid of Xia Guixuan, the two also felt that what the girl with glasses said was a bit interesting, and wanted to hear what she could say. Xiao Jiayu said, I don't know if you two believe it or not. Even if you appear alive in front of us, even if all of us know that Xia Guixuan is the god who protects the star field, even if I have seen the underworld of the dead with my own eyes, my comrades and I are still atheists. Xingtian couldn't help but speak. Aren't you lying with your eyes open? The gods are in front of you, and you are still atheists. He used his navel as a mouth, and his words were like thunder, spreading throughout the star field, extremely powerful. The meaning of his words was even more ironic. You have eyes but don't want them, why not give them to me? It's just that the definition of ghosts and gods has begun to differ, Xiao Jiayu said slowly. Xia Guixuan is just a person with great power. He is not fundamentally different from us. He has love and hate, and human thoughts. What he can create, we can too. You can call the wind and rain, and we can too, but the methods are different. If we say that the rigid duties without thoughts, gods can do it, and computers can do it too. This is a fact that has been verified. Qiyu frowned. Xiao Jiayu said, ghosts are also the condensation of spiritual power. They do not disperse because of some special powers. The so-called soul sea and soul power are not so mysterious. Our genetic evolution has also expanded to the level of spiritual power. Genetic warriors already have special powers such as dreaming, which originally only existed in immortal arts. The evolutionary results of human genetic research are the same as the practice of cultivation. They are nothing more than the practice methods of different civilizations, just like the difference between the Zelter original energy practice and the gods practice. Speaking of this, she paused and smiled brightly. If you summarize it from this perspective, the two of you are now actually ghosts with spirits that do not disperse, and this spirit that does not disperse is also partly due to our inheritance. Many warriors were moved. Yes, the real Qiyu and Xingtian died long ago in Zhulu Bangquan. What else can appear? Isn't it just a ghost? Xiao Jiayu suddenly said to Xingtian, we respect Xingtian, and what we respect is his unyielding will and spirit of resistance. Now that you are invading our homeland, we rise up to resist, and we are beheaded but unyielding. Then at this moment, each of us is Xingtian. On the contrary, you are not. Your axe is no longer chopped towards Zuinitin, but towards the descendants in the distance. You are just a ghost who has died for more than 5,000 years and is unwilling to rest in peace. The crowd was shocked. The confusion of the soldiers gradually disappeared, and their eyes began to have a bit of fanatical fighting spirit. Xingtian looked through the battleship and looked at Xiao Jiayu standing calmly inside, and found that he could not refute it. There is no Xingtian in the world anymore, and the unyielding will is Xingtian. It's not a ghost with those two words hanging on it, but attacking its own descendants. Ling Moxu stood by and pressed the hilt of the sword. In her heart, she felt a rare admiration for this fake husband. She secretly said that if you say I have big breasts and no brains in the future, I won't beat you. You are really amazing. Compared with you, my brain is really like a stone. Forget it, big breasts are enough. Qiyu was silent for a long time, and suddenly said, are you the emperor? Xiao Jiayu said, yes, You have also started to practice, yes, Qiyu suddenly said in a stern voice. You should know that even if we break through the star field, we will not slaughter our descendants, but only treat them well. So you let them resist, is it to defend their homeland or to defend your eternal rule? Yu Giheng and others twitched their eyes slightly and looked at Xiao Jiayu. Xiao Jiayu looked calm, but smiled a little. Do you know why Xia Guixuan clearly unified the star field, but always retained the country of Daxia and did not merge? Qiyu did not answer. How could he know what was going on inside? I said that what is passed down is the spirit, and what is eternal is the will, not you and me. And Xia Guixuan agrees with it and hopes to see it spread and results. Xiao Jiayu paused and smiled. There is something I wanted to do a long time ago, but it was not the right time. Now is probably the right time. Everyone had a hunch in their hearts. Before he could open his mouth to stop her, he heard Xiao Jiayu say word by word, Gongsun Jiayu will abdicate today. Daxia will no longer have an emperor. All state affairs will be jointly handled by the House of Representatives and the government system. Chapter 600, The Change of Times. Marshal, you, old General Yu Giheng and others were shocked to stop him. How can we treat national affairs as a joke? Xiao Jiayu smiled. General Yu still calls me Marshal, but never calls me Your Majesty? You know my intention clearly in your heart, from the beginning. I, Gongsun Jiayu, never want to be an emperor, but want to stop such a world from continuing to cycle. Maybe it will cycle again in the future? It doesn't matter, someone will spread this will. Yu Giheng was silent. Maybe you are not used to it? There is no leader, Xiao Jiayu said leisurely, but Yongjiu, seeing a group of dragons without a leader is auspicious. Our ancestors have told us a long time ago. You too, don't you agree? Qiyu and Xingdian were silent for a long time, and they didn't know how to answer. Maybe they predicted that one day when there would be no leader among the group of dragons, everyone would be like a dragon, which is auspicious. But after so many years, who can do it? This idealized country, which was almost like a dream, was created by Xia Guixuan and Xiao Jiu, two dead intellectuals. Even Yu Giheng and other like-minded people suddenly felt uncomfortable. Not to mention Qiao and Xingxin themselves, they were all old slave owners, and their acceptance of these changes was far less open-minded than Deu, let alone Xia Guixuan. Seeing everyone silent, Xiao Jiayu smiled brightly. Two seniors, the times have long been different. Now everyone can accept and pursue a leaderless group, but you still can't believe it. It's like we are already flying in the universe with steel battleships, artificial satellites are orbiting the star field, and self-developed digital gods are in charge of everything, and you are wearing animal skins, beating war drums, carrying axes, and even saying to yourself, let's just think of us as a primitive tribe. Qiyu, Xiao Jiayu smiled and said, people nowadays always hope that future generations can live better than themselves. I believe you two have the same mind. Since you see that future generations live better than you, shouldn't you be relieved and retreat? Instead, war drums are roaring and halberds are waving. Why? Is it the will of heaven, Xingdian? The way of heaven moves forward. The objective law is that the times are developing, and each generation is better than the previous one. If the way of heaven stops it, it is against the law. This so-called way of heaven is not the way of heaven, but a chaotic fate. Well, Xingdian is not Xingdian, you are Xingdian. When the way of heaven becomes a chaotic fate, you represent the way of heaven. But every sentence made sense. When the times don't need emperors, I will abdicate. And thousands of years ago, the times didn't need you anymore, Xiao Jiayu said slowly. Why don't you two be like me? I only inherit the spirit, and so do you. Why don't you remove your own existence and watch the future generations progress, and you and I smile on the top of Kunlun Mountain? Qiyu was silent for a long time, and finally said, I am Qiyu, not Gongsun Zuinun. Then you two are just demons who invaded our homeland. Then let you see if the development of 5,000 years is what you want. Xiao Jiayu turned off the sound wave and calmly ordered, Technology Division 1, Quantum Shield Cover, EMP Shock Wave Preparation. Second Division Plague Attack Preparation. Guard the left side of the first core forward 3,000 kilometers, Antimatter Cannon Preparation. The right side of the second core forward 3,500 kilometers, Dimensional Cannon Preparation. Target, Demon Qiyu. The dialogue turned into speech, and the other party didn't even have a few words to refute. And at the end of the speech, it seamlessly transitioned into a declaration of war. The galaxy fleet suddenly opened up, with countless siege tanks mounted on the fleet, like a steel behemoth awakening from the universe, with its fangs piercing the past and present. No one expected that the one who took the initiative to issue the attack order was Gongsun Jiu. The morale of the human fleet was high, while the tribes of Chiao and Xingshan were looking at each other in bewilderment. Chiao and Xingshan felt that they were not demon gods, but this woman was. Chiao suddenly thought, it's a pity that this thing is a woman, it might be better if she was born a man. She also has the surname Gongsun, as if Zulu has come again. Maybe this is one of the results of the development of the times. What is the difference between women and men? Should I really not come out again? The trance thought was only a moment, and Xiao's eyes quickly became ferocious. Want to use these iron lumps to replace the immortal gods? At least you are not worthy of it today. Clang. A sword was unsheathed in the steel battleship. The cold light on the sword illuminated the dark void. Qiyu's face changed slightly. Zhuan Yuan sword. Xia Guixuan's soul thought passed through this war zone without staying for long. When it comes to war, Xiao Jiu never needs anyone to worry about him. And in terms of opponents, Xiao Jiu is a descendant of Gongsun. Mozu holds Zhuan Yuan sword. This couple is a good match. Who told you that there are only steel lumps? We also have sword cultivators, and we use your old friend's sword. This is another Zulu, and another Banquan, the alternation of the new and the old, and the proof of the change of the times. He, Xia Guixuan, is not needed at all. No, it's okay to say that the surname Gongsun alone means that if it is confirmed that Xiao Jiu is really of Zuinyun blood, then Xia Guixuan is actually also, then this forget it, it's okay, it's already 50 servers, but why do I still feel very excited? Well, it seems that I am really a pervert. Just as I was thinking this, I heard a conversation in front of me, and the voice was very loud, like thunder. I heard that Xia Guixuan is a pervert. Xia Guixuan, UF King whisper, the whole star field will hear it, okay? Who is so loud? No, I'm not a pervert. Who are you? In the distance, a giant was suspended in the void, about the same size as Gaia. In fact, in a sense, it is also Gaia. The Nordic giant Ymir, with a Nordic giant army. If it is said that one breath becomes three pure, it is actually a category. Different gods who transform into the world, the body is the world, but the name is different, so the embodiment is different. In front of it is Shangzhaoi, who is standing on his horse with a spear. On Shangzhaoi's back is Yin Xiaoru, who is a combination of Yin Xiaoru and Long Gao. It is estimated that Yin Xiaoru is the one who is in control of the will at this time. Behind them stood Frigga and Aphrodite, who were summoned to find the passage before and have not disappeared, and the God Legion. It can be seen that in the military arrangements of Long Gao and Xiao Ymir, who is alone, is more important than Gaia and Uranus. Because of the battle on the lunar plane, Gaia's real name in the star field was taken away by Xia Guixuan. At least in the Kanglong star field, the power she can exert is not as good as before, and Ymir is unknown. Change and Utu are not in the three battlefields. With the Soul Abyss and the Dragon Legion that has not yet been launched, it is unknown who should be prepared. My sister has reminded me that the forces on the front line are not only the three known types, but there may be others. Anyway, Xia Guixuan can leave the military affairs to them without any problems. At this time, the person Ymir is talking to is Frigga. I heard that Xia Guixuan's greatest pleasure is to play with other people's wives, and the grudge is with Emperor Jun and how you come from this. You were summoned by him, isn't it, to play with you? Fortunately, Change is not here, otherwise she would be angry to death. Who said that the grudge is with Emperor Jun and how you came from this? What has this rumor become? Frigga was saying, the Lord God didn't touch me. Ymir said, I don't believe it. Shangzhao, I couldn't help but say, whether you believe it or not, what's it got to do with you? Ymir grinned, because I like to hear and see. Odin is my enemy. Do you think he's my son? Shangzhao, yes, the Nordic side is different from Greece. Ymir was knocked down by the Odin brothers and turned into the earth, which is a bit similar to the Chinese chisel in chaos. Suddenly, time. Xia Guixuan is now very proficient in controlling time, chaos, Ahua. Does this mean that Xia Guixuan chiseled Ahua? Or is it that the text behind is, to put it bluntly, time? Ymir said in a carefree manner, I heard that Xia Guixuan evolved the descendants of gods here just to add all kinds of tricks to his harem. To put it bluntly, he made people to play with himself, such as foxes and horses. Tisk, tisk, he knows how to play. The giants behind him laughed. The army of descendants of gods collectively covered their faces. Yin Xiaoru, with 2 battlefields where the mouth cannons won great victories. It seems that this battlefield mouth cannon will be defeated because of the father god's perverted reputation? Yin Xiaoru said indignantly, Zeus didn't even let go of his daughter, granddaughter, and great-granddaughter, so what's wrong with our father god making figures to play with? I just like to let him play with them. Aphrodite, don't compare Zeus to the lowest level in everything. At least he hasn't played with me. Ymir chuckled, actually, it's nothing that he likes to make figures to play with. If he really wants to have sex with chaos, then we will not be happy. If he has sex with chaos, what are we? Yin Xiaoru laughed. Well said, I will suggest that he must do so later, Ymir said leisurely, but looking at your size, it's nothing if you think about it. He and chaos. Well, isn't that painless acupuncture, the morale of the gods legion -100. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone, see you in the next video.